Tonight we're talking about Breakout Con 2025, a great tabletop gaming convention held annually in Toronto, Ontario.
So this was my first time going to Breakout since 2019, and I'm going to let you know why it's still a great convention. But more importantly, we brought our daughter Gwendolen along for her first ever tabletop gaming convention experience, and I want to hear what she thought of the event. Now we'll be talking about the convention, and then we'll be talking about the games we played at the convention. And then we're going to wrap up with a review, detailed reviews of two of the games we brought home from that convention, Sinoda and Maki Master.
So it sounds like time for some introductions. I'm Sean, your host, and we want to welcome a very special guest this week, Moe and Deanna's daughter and our show's resident artist, Gwen, who will be here to tell us about her first ever convention experience.
Hello.
And you've already heard a bit from Moe T, the tabletop bellhop himself.
I am Moe Deanna, the tabletop bellhop, your cardboard concierge, working with you to make your game nights better.
We aim to record our podcasts live Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/tabletop bellhop, and we love it when people join us in the lobby, our chat room.
Now, this episode does exist thanks in part to our awesome Patreon patrons and our sponsor, Grand Gamers Guild. You can find detailed show notes for this episode at tabletopbellhop.com/episode 270. That's 270, the numbers. Some links there may be affiliate links.
The Tabletop Bellhop exists to answer your gaming and game night questions. Tonight, though, is a special episode with a special guest where we're going to tell you all about Breakout Con 2025, which happened a couple of weeks ago as of today here in Toronto, Ontario.
So that special guest is my daughter, Gwendolen, who came with us to Toronto to attend her first ever tabletop gaming convention. Welcome, Gwen.
Hello.
Now, one question you might be asking yourself right now is, what happened to Deanna? Well, we're sorry to say she spent the entire convention in the hotel room at the Sheridan Center due to catching an illness during all of the traveling going on of late.
Yeah, we had a very busy Q1 and interacted with a lot of people, and we're on things like plane flights. And I think it was kind of inevitable one of us got sick. I got sick before we went, and she caught it while we were out. So unfortunately, Deanna didn't get to experience much of Breakout Con except for the lobby at the Sheridan Center, our room, and the food we brought back to her during the day, during the con. We did get her out to dinner one night. Now, while it wasn't ideal, it does leave us with a pretty cool opportunity tonight, seeing as she's not available, to have Gwen on the show. So there's a silver lining. Now, before we start talking about the con, there is one important thing we have to mention. You know us, we're all about disclosure. The three of us did attend the con as media. We were provided 3 media badges that did get us access to a couple of media-only events and access to a media lounge, which actually I made use of this year.
Now, Breakout Con was put together by a team of Toronto area gaming community leaders in 2016 with a focus on a wide range of gaming events, covering all forms of tabletop and a lineup of incredible guests. They also strongly strive to be safe and inclusive in their space, and that is welcoming to gamers of all kinds. It happens annually on the last weekend of March break and is held at the Sheridan Center in downtown Toronto.
Now, I got to say the number of guests is what originally got me to check out Breakout Con, and that hasn't changed, but we'll get to that later. First, I just want to mention the venue. The Sheridan Center, honestly, is really good for a con of the size Breakout is. The hotel's right on site, which is nice. And actually, there's the main floor you get on the Sheridan Center. Well, the con takes up all of the second floor, and the elevators stop right in the second floor. You're literally going from the con hall to your room, which is awesome if you're staying on site. Of course, you get all the amenities and attractions of downtown Toronto, and it's located on a path, which I think is awesome. Now, for those of you who aren't from the GTA area or Ontario, who don't know what the path is fascinating. The path is Toronto's downtown labyrinth. It's basically a dungeon that exists under all the skyscrapers downtown Toronto. Though, because the event's on a weekend, most of that dungeon's shut down because downtown Toronto is very much a 9-to-5 business sort of area, and there's not a lot going on the weekends. But it does make a good way to get out of the cold and get away from some of the pretty much guaranteed March rains. You can get pretty far out into Toronto just by using the path and kind of, if you know where you're going, come up where you want to come up.
Yeah, I hadn't realized that we were above the path at all. And on the first day, you were like, "Oh, I want to show you something." And I was not expecting it to be the path. Previously, my only experience with it was when it was like fully closed, so it was really cool being able to actually check it out. Most of the stuff was still closed, but we
Yeah.
did find like a couple food courts and a cool coffee shop and a mini set.
But it's funny because working in Toronto all those years, I hated the Sheridan Center. Many events try to put in too much production for the size of the venue, which is mostly the ballroom in the basement where Breakout isn't using.
Yes.
And the loading dock in that place is utterly horrible. As an attendee for these events, though, I have to say it's really not bad at all.
Yeah, I like the venue. I really do. I've as an attendee, again, I didn't hear anyone complaining about the loading docks, but I'm sure it was a bit of an issue. But again, the Breakout only takes up part of the Sheridan Center. It's on the mainly second floor, a little bit on the third floor. Now, one thing I want to give to a tip for anyone attending Breakout is all you got to do is go a block, maybe two away from the convention center to find reasonably priced food and drink. I was actually impressed because this year the convention center provided food for attendees of the con, like out on the con. The con floor sounds weird if you've ever been there. In the hallways, we'll say, provided food in the hallways, but the prices were ridiculous. And I'm sure this is set by Sheraton, not Breakout, but it was $9 for a can of pop or $20 if you wanted a wrap with that. I didn't catch how much a wrap was on its own, like $20 for like high school lunch, if that. And what's even sillier, and Gwen is the one that noticed this, if you went down the escalator to the bar in the lobby, you could get the exact same combo for $14. So you had a $6 event charge for going up the stairs. It was kind of ridiculous.
And of course, if you walk across the street, there's street meat galore as the food trucks line up across from the city hall.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like I understand not wanting to cut into your gaming time and wanting to get something that's right there. But like, I'm not joking, like a block, you just have to leave. Like you cross the street to the park, get street meat. And I got to say, there was one that had fantastic poutine this year. Or check out our new favorite place called the Chef's Hall. Now I saw this when we were there in 2019, but we never went. And that was a mistake. Like if I had found this place earlier in the weekend, we would have probably ate every meal there. And honestly, you go out the front doors of the Sheraton where all the parking is and the valet, you turn left and it's right there. Like you can see it. You cross one street and it's one lane, one-way street. So it's not hard to cross. And you go into this building and it's awesome. It's a place called the Chef's Hall that is filled with, there was a number on the door, but it's like a number of Toronto area chefs that basically have stalls in here with a huge variety of all kinds of food and drink, including a good coffee shop, because that is something that I found missing in the Sheridan Center. Multiple bars with local craft beer and all kinds of food options.
Yeah, I love the Chef's Hall. When we first walked in, I was honestly really skeptical because we were greeting with a giant screen playing Toy Story, which took me a moment to realize it was because of March break. And once we walked around and saw the different vendors, it was very overwhelming, actually, but also very impressive. And after a bit, I decided to get some sushi, and it was very good.
Yeah, so depends on when you're there, and it does vary, but usually it's about 14 to 17 different vendors at the Chef's Hall.
Yeah, it was impressive. Like Gwen got her sushi. I got a pork Slovakia wrap with like, it was like lemongrass, and it had a unique tzatziki sauce on it. I think there was lavender. I think it was lemongrass and lavender or something. Deanna got this like amazing looking tempura bowl over rice. And there were just all kinds of options. Like you could go there and get a hot dog and burger. You could get ramen. There was actually two different noodle bowl type places. I think it was udon and ramen. Indian, you could get shawarma. Like the amount of options was just fascinating. So that is my biggest tip. If you go there, all you got to do is go at the front door of the Sheraton and look left. Like you can easily run over there, grab a coffee, and get back, in a 10-minute break while, your GM's trying to figure out what to do when your group goes off the rails.
And Scott Bees is saying they went to the fried chicken place there, and the chicken pieces were huge and tasty.
Yeah, really impressed.
So we mentioned earlier about the guests at Breakout Con, and the guests of honor this year at Breakout included Sharang Biswas, multiple award-winning RPG designer, Erica Burius, board game designer, host of the Ludology podcast, and lead design for Spin Master Games, as well as much, much more.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Bill Benham, the TTRPG producer at WotC.
Yeah, and I think everyone knows what TTRPG WotC produces, so for how big a name that was. As for interacting with the big guests, I actually stopped in and watched a recording of the Ludology podcast. That's Eric is on that with Sen Foon Lim, where they were joined by Helenia Capel from Kids Table Board Games. And later, designer and podcaster Daniel Kwan joined them, and they are all Canadian. And what they were talking about were, for one, the benefits of being Canadian publishers and being Canadians in the industry, but also the hurdles we face as Canadians in the tabletop industry. And you'll have to check out that episode. I will try to, I don't even know if it's live yet. Like, they were recording it there. I don't know what their release schedule, but if I can find a copy of that episode, I will drop it in the show notes. Now, I got to say, Gwen did not care.
No, I didn't. While Dev was watching the podcast, though, I did walk around and look at some of the different vendors, and then I decided to actually go and paint miniatures, because there was this really cool area at the con where there was like tables and paints and people who could like help you out with like painting different minis. And earlier that day, I bought a set of D&D Knolls, so I got to paint one of them, and it was really cool.
All right. Well, in addition,
the people running that, it was interesting because they had if I had known ahead of time, I might have been tempted to do it, but I think it was $60. It might have been $30, but they actually had like, you could take a course with a professional miniature painter, and they gave you hands-on training, but you also got an all-in-one painting kit that gave you the brushes, the paints, and everything, and you got to take that home. But we didn't sign up for it ahead of time. But I thought it was really cool because they also had basically a bring your own mini. As long as you had a miniature, you could sit down to the painting area, as long as they weren't running one of these special events, and they would teach you to paint, which is awesome.
All right. Well, in addition to the guests of honor, Breakout is known for its fantastic selection of industry guests, which include people in all parts of the industry, including writers, designers, educators, artists, illustrators, developers, content creators, puzzle makers, indie publishers, directors, animators, pizza lovers, and more. Yes. It's always an amazing group, and 2025 was no exception. We considered listing them all out, and I nixed that after I read the list. So you can find a full list along with QR codes for where you can find everyone online at breakoutcon.com/guests. That's breakoutcon.com/guests.
Yeah, I took the time to start writing them into the show notes, and then realized that like I was at M and it was already like 30 people or 40. I don't even know. I didn't count. There were so many industry guests. And like I said, that's originally when I first attended Breakout Con, which was in 2018. We went 2 years in a row. That's what drew me. I was like, everyone that I know in the gaming industry is a guest at this con. I want to go see them all. So that was a huge draw. Now, as for the guests this year, we got to meet and talk to many of them. There's far too many people to call out specific people and everyone we mentioned, but I do want to share some stories. But one of the cool things about Breakout Con, and one of the things I love about this con, is this isn't like special guests at Origins where they have like an artist alley or they have a row of booths and there's famous people sitting at a booth and you probably have to pay to interact with them or to get pictures or they sign things. That's not this at all. These people, well, yes, each of them is probably running some kind of event. I think that's part of being a guest at Breakout is you have to do something. You have to host a panel or run an event or run a game. But for the most part, these folks are literally just walking around and enjoying the con just like every other gamer, because most of the industry people love games and that's why they're in the industry. And don't be surprised to like go to something like Breakout, sit down in the board game room and find out that you're playing the game with the designer, or, you know, you're sitting to play a silly game of Talisman and it ends up the people across from you are like Eric Lang and Jason Gilmore. That's just the kind of thing that happens there, which I think is awesome. Now, what was kind of embarrassing to a point, I don't know, I'm used to it by this point, but I think it embarrassed Gwen, was how many of these people I do know and how many people stop me in the hall, because like, despite the fact I do have some imposter syndrome, but I go somewhere like that and I'm like, yeah, okay, I know a lot of people in the industry. And I had a lot of great conversations. Most of my con was spent, I don't even want to call it networking because we weren't working. We weren't like trying to develop relationships or we weren't talking shop. We were just hanging out, but I got to interact with a lot of awesome people.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of times when we were just like trying to walk across the con to like reach a different room or something, and Dad would suddenly stop to talk to someone he knew, or someone would stop him. At first it was like somewhat annoying, but it was also really cool.
Now,
Yeah, one of the things that we eventually, I got Gwen to go off on her own, and that was a little better. That way I could stop, and she wasn't being held up and bored listening to Dad talk shop.
Well, now with everyone you did run into or get introduced to, were there any particularly memorable moments?
Okay, some highlights. So a big one for me, and this is a little bit of story time here, is I got to sit down with Eric Lang and got to see the inside of his head, which was fascinating. Eric was brought to the con to premiere something. We were invited to a media-only event where Eric was going to show something off. All we were told is we wouldn't be able to talk about it, and we'd have to sign an NDA. Well, we sit down at the table, and there's Eric. He's got a game on the table. It's one of his older games, Magic Academy. And he's sitting there and he starts a conversation with, so what did you expect out of this? And we're like, well, we were told this was a special media event and you were going to be announcing something. Well, that's not this. I was supposed to do that. They flew me here. They got me here to do that. But then a press release that was supposed to go out didn't go out. And now I can't show you anything. And I spoke up and said, oh, so it's a licensed game. And he went, yep. And that's all I learned about Eric's new game. So Eric has a new licensed game coming sometime. But because we had this time slot booked, what Eric offered, he said, you know what? This is Arcane Academy. This is a game I put out many years ago. I hate it now, but I liked it at the time. And I have been hired to do a second edition. Will you sit with me and help me play test the second edition I've been working on all morning? Which I'm like, wow, that's just really cool. And we got to sit there and play around with Eric and Eric's head and just watch him work. And I am never going to forget one quote he said. He said, the one thing you will not see me do during this is take notes, because I never take notes. I am a game designer. I design games. They are my games. If I cannot remember the rules to my own game, how can I expect the players to remember them? And that kind of blew my mind as a design philosophy. Now, anyone who follows Eric online knows that he has very much switched his philosophy from big, heavier games to quicker, easier to remember games. And I could probably spend the rest of the show talking about sitting with Eric and seeing his divine philosophy, but I'll stop here. I would just say it was an amazing experience that I was totally not expecting.
Speaking about interesting things that happened at the con that I was not expecting to occur, while I was first looking at the con schedule online before we went to Breakout Con, I had noticed that there was an activity called Portfolio Review, where you could show someone your portfolio and talk about doing art for board games. The problem was that it was supposedly 18 plus. So obviously I assumed that I couldn't attend. On the first day of the con, we spoke to someone and the portfolio review came up again. So we were like, oh, let's ask them about that, see if I can still go, even though I'm technically not 18 yet. And surprisingly, the answer was yes.
Yeah, it was interesting. We were talking to our main contact, Yvonne, and it came up that Gwendolen is was going to school for illustration and trying to be a children's book illustrator. And it was Yvonne who was like, hey, are you going to go to Gio's portfolio review? And Gwen pointed out, she's like, yeah, I wanted to, but I can't get in on that. Well, Yvonne immediately started pulling some strings and making some phone calls and getting on her walkie-talkie there and got the permission for Gwen to attend. Actually, we went and did something else and she came and found us and was like, no, Gwen's good to go, but you have to be there. There has to be a parent present. I'm like, all right, sure, fine.
Yeah, the problem was that now that I was going to it, I hadn't brought a portfolio with me because I expected that I couldn't get in. So to try and fix this, I had to make a makeshift portfolio on my phone using photos. But once we got there and the host showed up, they were really cool. So Gio is a freelance concept artist and illustrator. They've worked on stuff like Pizza Titan Shelter, the Fallout Shelter app, Cyberpunk Red, Into the Motherlands, and more. They were really nice, and they talked to us for a while about board gaming industry stuff for art and stuff about being a freelance artist, commissions, online art classes, even children's book illustration, which is what I actually want to do. Some of the information was stuff I already knew, but there was also a lot that I didn't, and it was really neat because they said they could put me in contact with different people, and it was just generally really awesome.
This one's going to feel a little weird because I know they happen to be in our chat room tonight, which I wasn't counting on. I actually had a really good conversation with Bill Murphy and Scott Kelly from BS Games. That's where the BNS come from. They're a Canadian indie board game company who were there showing off their game Sinoda. which is an abstract strategy game that we're going to be reviewing later tonight. So I don't want to get into the details of the game now. Now, I actually met them because Gwen, who wanted to play in their Beat the Designer challenge. So because of how that went, I ended up spending a bunch of time talking to them.
Yeah, I had spotted the Beat the Designer thing in the list of activities, and I was like, oh, that sounds fun. It's like an abstract strategy game. I like those. And it was really fun. Although I didn't win, it was like a super interesting game, and I had a great time playing it. And it was very unique mechanically, at least compared to any other games that I've played.
Well, yeah, so it was neat. We had a good conversation about ways they could better advertise their game. We talked about some things like, a Tabletop Bellhop discount code. And while anyone listening right now, if you do ever check out BS Games, use code Bellhop and save 10%. Thank you, Scott and Bill, for that.
Well, something I remember being a big feature of Breakout Con in the past was the prototype playtesting area. Was that a thing again this year?
So it was. This year it was hosted by Protospiel North, which is a Toronto area tabletop design competition. They had an area set up just outside the main board game hall, and it was quite large. I think it was bigger than I remember it being in 2019, and it was always packed. Now, I am sorry to say I did not play any games in that area this year, but I did stop by and watch a few games, and I shared some pictures on my socials. I was doing a whole, hey, if you're at Breakout, be sure to check out this area to try to drive some gamers over there. I got to admit, after Gamma and all the prototypes we saw there and how many hours we spent in the prototyping room, I was a little prototyped out myself. Interesting, though, I did get to see and sit down and get a prototype game and some previews, but it wasn't there. It was during a meeting with Sean Yockerman from Burnt Island Kids Table Board Games. The prototype game, I think people are going to be hyped about because it's codenamed Campfire. That's probably not the final name. That is the exact same design team as Fromage, and that right now that's like hot right now. Hot cheese is everyone's talking about Fromage. The thing that looks cool about this though is this is a kids table board game, so it's going to be a kids game, but it's got some bidding mechanics in it, and I can't think of another kids game with bidding mechanics. I think this is going to be a great my first bidding game, kind of like how each of their other games, like my first push your luck game, right, to introduce mechanics to a new generation. I'm really hyped for this game, but it was one of the most prototypes I've ever seen. I'm actually surprised they showed it to me. It looked so prototype.
Yeah, I can't think of any games that do have bidding for like a more kids game, like at all. So that's really neat.
Think of any. If you can think of some, chat, call them out.
So you mentioned Burnt Island and Kids Table Board Games as well as BS Games. Were there any other publishers? What other vendors?
So Kids Table Board Games was sharing a room with Inside Up Games, who we love. I got a ton of Inside Up Gaming at Adams since they were one of the main sponsors, and spent 5 days with Connor, the owner of the company. Connor was not at Breakout. I was kind of looking forward to seeing him because I thought it'd be kind of funny, but he was smart and took a vacation after Adam, unlike us. Aries Games had their own room, which was neat to see because Aries does heavier games. Other exhibitors were just spread around the con. I am going to list them all. It's going to take a little bit, but I think it's important to call out who was there in case you want to look them up. There was Anti-Hero Games Publishing, Blitzstream, Brainy Games, Changeling Gaming, Chaotic Studios, Composed Dream Games, Courtney Lunn, D20 Loves Dice, Dusty Dice, NJ Games, Fox Network, Windsor's Own from the Ground Up Games, which I thought was awesome, El Raw, Geeky Goodies, Good Luck Press, IPR. I love the IPR booth. Oh my gosh. ILO, which is a Canadian publisher, which totally confused me because they had a bunch of games that I've already seen before by other publishers, but I guess they're one of the main. They're from Quebec, and they're one of the main publishers that translates things to French for people. They Canadianize games, which is pretty cool. Some of their games were like ELO games and Chip Theory games and Blue Orange games, but they were all had the ILO or ELO. I'm not sure how it was pronounced. There was an amusing company named Imp on a Sweater. Long Pack Games was there, so you actually even had a game manufacturer. Machiavellian Princess, Munera, Shout, Starlight, Wizards of the Grimoire, and of course the Toronto Gamers were there as well, and that's the GAYMERS. Personally, I thought it was awesome running into Asher from the Ground Up Games. I'm surprised he's not in the chat room tonight. He often joins us. He's local to us, and he's actually one of the regulars now at our Walkerville game nights, and found the con to be awesome. He spent a lot of time chatting with me, and I actually made some introductions between him and Kids Table Board Games, because I think his game, This Humble Planet, seemed like something Kids Table might be interested in.
Talking about some of the other booths at the con, on the first day, I had spotted these like meeple keychain bag tag things from the Geeky Goodies booth. And Mom had like recently broken a zipper on one of her like computer bag zippers. And so I was like, oh, I should get one of those bag tags. But I did not have my money with me. So I was like, oh, I'll come back the next day. Next day, I come back and they are gone. I was like, maybe they sold them all. Maybe I imagined it. So I'm like, okay. I asked the booth like, hey, did you have keychains? And they were like, yeah, but no one was buying them. So we just kind of put them under the table. And I was like, oh, well, I'd like to buy one. And they get them out. And I'm like, okay. And then they're just like, no, you could just have it for free. So that was also really neat. I got like a little green meeple keychain from Geeky Goodies.
Now, another great experience was meeting the husband and wife team from NJ Games. They had a booth right next to Asher showing off their game Recipe Rumble. And it ends up, and I didn't realize this, they are huge fans of the show. So, Sean, a shout out to you. They say hi to you and Deanna. They recognized my voice when I was chatting with Asher about how the con was going and everything. And while Asher's like, why are you guys being so shy? Like, just come over here. Here's Moe. And he introduced us. And we actually spent quite a bit of time talking shop, and I again gave them some advice on promoting their games and things like that. We're looking forward to actually working with them in the past. So in the future, sorry, not in the past, no time travel this time. Working with them in the future. They're willing to give us a Bellhop discount code too. So we're going to work on that possibly by next episode.
Oh, sorry. They were really nice, and I got a chance to actually play Recipe Rumble with them. It was like this really quick real-time game where you were like competing to complete recipes before your opponents. And you had like a hand of cards, but you were like shouting at the other players like, oh, one, you trade one card with me, trade two cards with me. So it was really quick, like trying to get all the ingredients you needed to finish your recipe. And then you get to ring a fun bell, which is always fun. And the only thing I didn't really like about it was that there was only 6 different recipe cards. So I felt it could get a little bit repetitive, but it was really fun.
So apparently, whenever we're having real-time game discussions, we need to have Gwen on, because that is very different than anything Dee would have said about a real-time game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Deanna would have said, nah, that one wasn't for us. Overall, I could tell stories like this probably again and take up the rest of the show just talking about some of the awesome interactions we had. Ran into some old friends, Todd Crapper, Eric Paquette, one of our someone who's people on our Discord may know. There was just people we knew everywhere. It was pretty awesome. I would say overall it was probably since 2019. Now there have been breakout cons in between. Obviously there were a couple of years canceled, and I guess the 2021 year was very awkward. That's all I heard about that one. But I would say compared to 2019. There were probably 3 times more vendors and places to shop and way to buy games than the previous. And it was a great mix of stuff. Like there was jewelry and trinkets. There were tons of role-playing games. Well, IPR was there, but not just IPR. There were multiple vendors selling role-playing games, board games. There was even some scenery and minis. There was paints. One thing I do appreciate, and this is, I don't know if anyone remembers our 2019 episode recap of Breakout, but I went to Breakout and was like, I am not bringing dice because I'm going to go to a con and I'm going to sign up to play role-playing games, and I am going to buy dice at the con to play these games. And that was impossible. There were no dice vendors. And I was super embarrassed because then I had to go to D&D games and stuff and be like, oh, can I borrow your dice? Now that's not a problem. There were 3 at least dice vendors. Gwen, do you remember?
I can think of maybe 4 if you count dice gachapons at like random booths. You could get dice at pretty much any booth, honestly.
Yeah, pretty much.
So speaking of other vendors, there were so many vendors with like fun jewelry and pins and keychains. I ended up buying like some little pins to put on my purse, like a little dice pin and a Pokemon Pride one from the Gamers booth, as well as like a Splatoon one for a friend. And I even got mystery dice from Gachapon, like I said. Although the dice set ended up somehow with 2% dice in it. I don't know how that happened, but I didn't get a 10-sided die.
I guess that's the problem with gachapons. I told you could have went back to the booth.
I probably could have.
One other thing that did happen. I'm going to call up one other neat interaction I had was I ran into Dr. Brian from Brains on Games. What I didn't know up until the con was that we were the main inspiration for him starting your own channel, and that's awesome. I have been a big fan of his show since he started. He's on YouTube mainly. What's fascinating about his show is he's a professional psychologist, so he looks at board games through the lens. And one of the things he always calls out during all of his reviews or when he's talking about a game is like what educational purpose they serve and what skills you're going to learn. So once the two of us hooked up, he insisted we had to record an episode of his podcast right there at the show. And I gotta say, man, I need to step up the our recording levels. Like it was very portable. Just use cell phones and some like wireless mics and like set it up on the table and it's like, boom, let's go. Now, we did take advantage of that media room, which was awesome because it was quiet and there was a sign on the door saying we were recording and no one came in. So props to that, Breakout, for content creators. If the fact that will give you a media room is awesome. And then we did the whole show. And the next morning he finds me. He's like, oh, it's live. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, it's live. You can find it on YouTube. I'd appreciate if you share it. And I'm like, dude, like you published it while we're at Breakout. You recorded it, edited it, and published it. He's like, yeah, I was up a little late last night. I'm sorry. We'll never be that good. I'm never going to get to that level. Congratulations, Brian. We'll drop a link to that episode if you haven't seen it yet, because it's been out for a little while. Came out while we were at the con. But yeah, it was just me and him chatting about Breakout Con and Canadian games and how much fun we were having.
To
Yeah, I
be
never
fair,
actually.
oops, go ahead.
Sorry. I never had a chance to actually find out exactly what you talked about there. So honestly, I'm probably going to find it and watch it at some point because I'm interested to see what was actually said.
And to be fair, we could most times release the episode the next day. The problem is all the associated things around the episode, like show notes and things like that, that we do. That's actually one of the bigger holdups. One of the reasons we do the Wednesday record and Tuesday release originally was because you weren't allowed to, you had to wait so long before if you recorded something on Twitch, you had to wait so long before releasing it on other platforms. That isn't actually a thing anymore, but it's also just gives us more time to get all the background stuff done.
Well, if you go far enough back too, I always wanted the written reviews out before the podcast came out. So we would talk about it on the podcast and then I'd publish both written reviews before the podcast episode went live. Yeah, I don't do that anymore. Written reviews come out when they do. Now, one of the things that was new, completely new to us, not new to Breakout Con, and we decided to actually take part in the Bring and Buy auction. It was actually one of the main reasons we decided that we were going to go to the con this year, and we decided last minute was the chance to unload some games. I've been talking about it on the show, and a lot of locals know I've been trying to purge large chunks of my collection just because I'm out of room. They're all great games. They're all good games. They're games I've loved, and they're well played. Sorry, not well played isn't damaged, but they've been played and enjoyed. But I need to make room. So technically we could have brought 60 games because we're allowed 20 per person, but we just brought one set of 20. There is some prep work you have to do ahead of time, but if you do that, it's nice and smooth and simple. So what we had to do is before we left for the con, we had to give them our list of what games we were bringing and the price points. And I say price points because there's three. You set a price for when the hall opens, and then I couldn't tell you the exact numbers, but 2 hours later, the price can drop. And then 2 hours after that, the price can drop, something like that. So you give them the three prices. Then you print out the sheets and you have to actually attach them to all the games. And then another thing is you have to put your unique vendor number. Now, what happened to us, because this was so last minute, we didn't get the email for the vendor number before we left. So when we got there, the staff was awesome, actually. Like, we unloaded everything. And I got to thank Sean for letting us use his cart to be able to move 20 games at once pretty easily. We had to put our numbers on everything, but like the staff actually helped fill some of them out for us. So that was awesome. It was super easy drop off. Like there was a window to show up Saturday and we just showed up with our games, dumped them out on a table. At first, someone's like, don't put them on that table, put them on that table. But like, that was the only hiccup. Then that was it. Like, we were done. We did our part. Then we came back at 6 p.m. and we got paid for what we sold and collected the games that didn't. We did manage to sell 8 out of 20 games, which is pretty good. We made the mistake of, I was thinking because we're downtown Toronto, it's Breakout Con, it's one of Canada's biggest conventions, that there may be people there looking for rare games. So I actually brought some old sealed, like Avalon Hill War games and some of the stuff in my collection that's actually worth some money, like a second printing of Combat Commander Europe and stuff like that. They did not sell. It ends up, as we've often seen at many of these things, people were looking for deals. They were looking for good prices. They were looking for deals, not for rare games. So if I ever do it again, I'll just bring stuff that I'm going to put at a reasonable price, and I'll leave the collectibles here in Windsor, put them up on eBay or something. Overall, it was a really good experience. There was a hiccup where their system went down. Having not experienced it before, I didn't mind. I just kind of expected that waiting in line for a while would be a thing. But there were some people in line complaining that it was taking longer than it's ever taken before.
Yeah, I didn't actually realize that there was a hiccup. I just assumed the line was really long.
Yeah.
But it was very easy to just like drop everything off and everything. We just showed up. They took our games. We went back. We got our games. I think the worst part is the pre-prep part, because you have to go through every single game and like check if everything's actually there, and counting all of that takes forever. And I was the one doing that, and I had to count like 200 tokens for something once. Not fun.
No. And I got to admit, I don't know if everyone selling their games goes to that due diligence, but we definitely did to make sure they were complete. My copy of, what's it called? Oh, it's about evolving animals, and I can't remember the name of it.
Evolution?
Evolution, yes. My copy of Evolution is missing one food chip out of 200. And I'm like, I didn't even want to put that down. I'm like, no one's going to count the 200.
So I know the last time I was at Breakout Con, one of my favorite things to do was go attend panels. Did you guys hit up any this year?
Unfortunately, no. That's partly on me. And honestly, a part of that is also Deanna not feeling well, because usually at cons like this, we like to split the team. And if Sean was there, I probably would have left panels completely to Sean to take care of. So with everything I did do, I just never had time to make it upstairs to the third floor where they were having the panels. There was one time I did have a window of opportunity, and here's where it's my fault. I realized I forgot a mask. Now, props to Breakout for making masks recommended everywhere. And they were also required in certain areas where people would be gathering, including the bring and buy auction, because that room gets full, as well as some of the small rooms and panels and elsewhere they sometimes required it. And I did not remember to bring one down from the con that day. I probably could have went upstairs and gotten one, but then I would have showed up to the panel late, and that's always extremely awkward. And especially at Breakout, it's not like Gamma where people are coming in and out and walking in and out. It's kind of like everyone's there, then it starts. And if anyone like gets up and leaves, it's very obvious, or someone walks in. I didn't want to be that person at the Blue Man Group, for anyone who's seen the Blue Man Group. The other problem, and this is a minor complaint, is the panels just weren't well advertised. Like if you walk into the RPG room, they had binders showing all the games started, and the binders were like in rows and columns for what time they were starting. It was really easy to look at what games were going on. The board game room, all the play to win games are up at the front. Though I got to admit, maybe it's the same problem with the board games, because I don't remember seeing the board game schedule for the scheduled games anywhere. But there was just like, I wanted something on the second floor that said, hey, a panel's starting soon, or here's the next panels, or here's the panels for the next 5 hours. And the only way to find that information was to go to the website. And it's not even like a tabletop events app this year. They didn't use that, which I thank you for not using it, actually, because I know how much they cost and they're not that great. It was just on the event page on the website. And like, I actually went to someone and said, are they listing the events? And eventually they showed me, like, oh, they're the ones in gray. And I'm like, oh, okay, so there's only one room and it's every hour there's a panel. And I think they were all on Saturday.
Yeah, originally, I don't think we even realized where the panels were until like the second day, because there's one singular sign in front of the elevators with an arrow that just says panels, third floor. But it's so easy to miss, and it doesn't tell you what the panels are. There's just one sign.
So it sounds like the panels were in the same place with the exact same advertising problem they were in 2019.
Yep.
I remember that. I remember the sign that was useless, and the oh yes, you got to go over here to go upstairs to go into that one room where all the panels are, and it's the only thing happening on the third floor.
Like I just wanted like a triangle board, right? Listing all the panels and their times, just something, put that there in front of that elevator with an arrow. I don't know.
I suspect they didn't want to lock themselves in. They could be more flexible if they didn't have it written down somewhere.
Well, it was on the webpage. Like they were there. I just didn't realize, because like when you read a panel, you don't know if that's a D&D session or a panel when it's like, creating fantasy villages. And you're like, I don't know, is that a panel or is that like a workshop where you're going to make miniatures?
All right, well, we've talked about the venue, guests, exhibitors, and panels. What about gaming? The other thing we remember about Breakout is that there was gaming everywhere, and the board game open hall was huge.
Yeah, so gaming at Breakout is still great. Like even all the guests, ridiculous number of industry guests. You got some awesome special guests. You got special events. Most people, though, are there. This is a con you go to play games. Yeah, there was some networking going on. Like, yeah, I had some meetings myself with like kids' table board games. And there's some deals being signed, in the back rooms. But Breakout is primarily a con where people go to play games. Now, on the RPG side of things, there's one big room that's partially divided, which was kind of weird, for scheduled events. And they were great, again, with hooking up people for games. Every time I wandered in the room, people were like, are you looking for a game? This is starting soon. Hey, this designer is about to teach their game for the first time. And with Gwendolen in there with us the first time, I even went in and was like, what kind of games would you recommend? And you can talk about that in a second. The problem, though, is this room just isn't big enough, and it's got low ceilings and it's very loud. Like, I honestly know some gamers, friends of mine, that no longer attend Breakout because of how busy and loud and constrained that room gets. And honestly, for a con that tries to be very accessible, I couldn't see getting through that room in a wheelchair, for example. Like, I actually had a couple people messaging me to go, oh, is it better now? Can I come back next year? And I had to kind of say no, because that room is so crowded and it's role-playing games. You have a DM or GM talking to the other player, even if there's no DM game, it's people having to talk to other people when there's a table like all four corners from you of people trying to talk to people, and you just end up with people talking over each other, and it's a bit much. It's a little bit much.
So there is one thing that makes it slightly better, and that is that there is like a certain number of overflow rooms in like a different separate hallway. So there's a couple for board games and a couple for RPGs. And these are obviously much smaller and consequently a lot quieter. I ended up playing a role-playing game in one of them, and it was so much better than any of the other like RPG rooms, because like the art portfolio review was in one of those rooms, and it was so loud. I'm like, we're trying to talk to this person, and it's hard to hear because there's just so much talking. But when I was playing the RPG in one of the smaller rooms, it was a lot more manageable. The issue is, again, smaller, so fits less people. But there were two rooms that were quieter.
Now they were easy. Can you talk to how easy it was to get into a game?
So when I went to sign up for a game, I was like, I have never actually done an RPG, like just went and signed up for one before. I've only ever done it like hosting with my friends. So I was like, I have no clue what I want to play. So I'm just kind of looking at this, but there's all these like different charts, and on the charts it's got what time they're at, how many people are in them, if they're looking for people, what genre it is, what it's called. You can also look it up online. There's more information, like a little blurb on there, as well as there's like 2 or 3 people standing there running the booth who you can ask and be like, hey, I want to join in a game. What would you suggest? And specifically, I was like, hey, I'm looking for one that would be fine of having a minor, because I know some of them are going to be 18 plus, some of them aren't. And I was like, what do you suggest for like a beginner RPG? And they were able to suggest like 2 or 3 different ones that I could pick from, tell me what they were about. So it was really easy being able to find one and get like matched up with something that you wanted to play.
Yeah, and I got to say that's invaluable. Like, that's awesome. Like, if you are new to role-playing games or looking to experience more than the F20 Fantasy 20 style of games, this is a great place to do it. You can easily find games. You will not be bored. If you're really open to playing, like Jeff Sousa would love this place and just walk in and go, okay, give me something. Like, it would be fantastic for that. Sadly, I did not play any role-playing games this year. I wanted to, and it just didn't work into my schedule.
Yeah, now this is something that you should not expect at other cons you're going to, or many other cons you're going to. For instance, Origins is a very different experience for RPGs. You have to use the tabletop events guide, and you have to stumble through that. And I mean, you might get lucky if you walk in and ask someone at a table what game they're playing, and they'll tell you all about it, but they won't have any idea what are happening at the other 20 tables in that room. It's very much every man for themselves, every person for themselves type of event where they throw the listings up there. And there are a couple of specialty rooms where a publisher has their room of games. And they will be able to help you out more. But if you go into the vast unwashed masses of RPGs, RPG rooms, it's everyone for themselves. So this is a great thing, but it's because of the size of this con and the specific sort of gamers first idea of Breakout Con that it works this way.
Yeah. Now, board gaming's similar, but the board game room's way better. It's got windows, it's got curtains in front of those windows that dampen the sound. It's got a higher ceiling, and they didn't put a divider down the middle of the room. So it is way better for that. The acoustics are better, and it's not as loud somehow, even though there's a bunch of board gamers. The other thing, though, is these are people playing board games. Most board games, unless you're playing a party game, don't get that loud. So I do think that's also part of it. The board game library is, again, provided by Tabs. That's the Toronto Area Board Gaming Society, who have a quite extensive library. I was bummed, though, because I wanted to show Gwen Ascension, and they did not have a single version of Ascension. I'm like, they're on their 10-year anniversary. You got to have some version of Ascension, and they did not. So I was a little bummed by that. They still had the signs, which is one of the things that I've always applauded Breakout for, signs you can hold up to say game starting soon or looking for teacher. And I gotta say both of us spent a lot of time in that room. They had a significant play to win section. And I actually did the thing we talked about in the past that felt like it's probably my best spot at Breakout Con as the tabletop bellhop, is to wander around looking for players who look lost and who have signs that say we need a game teacher for games I know. So that's what I did, is I helped people out. I helped people set up games. I helped people put away games. And then, of course, I'd mention, I'm like, hey, I'm Moe Deanna, the Tabletop Bellhop. Check out our show.
Yeah, I sort of had a different experience walking around because obviously I wasn't looking to teach games. But if there was like a game that you spotted that someone was playing, you could ask about it. And that was always neat because you could just like learn about a game that looked interesting. And sometimes the like game starting soon signs are a little bit hard to spot. But once you did find them, most people like had them up if they were actually looking for players and were using the signs, and you could easily find a game to join in on if you just walked around for long enough.
Yeah, and again, this Tabs is fantastic, and one of the nice features they do is they do pack up their board games. You're not just getting it directly out of the box. They've got some guides in there, and they'll often have some form of organization in the boxes. They go that little extra step with their collection. It's not just here's the box, figure it out.
All right, and actually, to that point, I am going to call out one negative and just shame on you, some gamers who went to Breakout. Put a game away properly. Like, if it has trays and inserts and places to put things and it's obvious, please use them. We took out a couple games that were disasters that like had organization things in there. That's not on the convention organizers, that's on the gamers. So just don't be that gamer. Like, when you put the game away properly, treat it as if it was your own, please.
Yeah, I'm like, we opened up a copy of Maki Stack. It's got perfectly nice box inserts, and someone had just shoved everything in there with like no rhyme or reason. And like, their pieces are going to get damaged. It's not cool. Don't do that.
Don't table wipe.
Yes. Now, something I think was new this year, what was at least new since we'd been, was a specific room for competitions, for tournaments, organized play events. Like this is where Eric was supposed to show off his game. Like it was like a very special board game area that wasn't the open gaming hall, but it also wasn't just like the scheduled board game events. It was all for like, it's like little mini tournaments, or if they're showing off games, or if there was anything like that going on. So there were a number of tournaments. When we first walked in, there was an ARCS tournament going on, and I'm like, damn it, it's too late to join, because I was really tempted, even though I don't know the game that well. But the other thing that I thought was really cool, and 2019, this might not have even been a thing, but the World Series of Board Games was there, and they were running sanctioned qualified events. And World Series of Board Games has become a significant thing in our hobby now. And I thought it was really cool to see that represented at Breakout Con. Gwen was excited about playing tournament games, but unfortunately, this was another case where in the listing, everything was 18 plus. And we were told that this was only due to there being cash prizes. So because some of the I guess the World Series of Board Gaming, you won cash prizes as well as moving to the next level. And some Ontario law means you can't give cash prizes to minors.
But after talking to people there, it turned out that I could still compete in like some of the smaller ones. Like there was a Sinoda tournament I technically could have competed in, and some other different smaller tournaments. I just couldn't compete in the World Series ones because of the prizes.
Yeah, they basically said is if they were giving away like a copy of the game, that's fine. But if they were giving anything with monetary value, including gift cards, because I guess there were some friendly local game stores that were having competitions in there as well, or there might have been vendors that were out in the hallways.
So was that the 18XX room that is now being used for competitions, or
no? 18XX is where Kids Table Board Games and Inside Up was.
Okay.
This was, I don't even know what it was when we were there before. It's I don't know how to describe it if I wasn't there. It's the big room that's down a little hall where all the vendors were. Mm-hmm. Like there's a square of vendors and then some double doors to go into a room. Like
when you go past the elevator, there's like a section with some booths, and then there was a room.
That was the RPG room last time.
No, the RPG room was right by the RPG room was the same, the Caldwell room. Oh. Same as it was last time in 2019. This was another one. It was the overnight gaming room if you did play after midnight when we were there. But I don't know. I think it was just Board Gaming Overflow before. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But there was a room dedicated to like official sanctioned tournaments and whatever, like competition room almost. It was kind of interesting. One thing I do like seeing at a Breakout Con that they've had every time we've gone is a family gaming room. Friday it was dead, but Saturday, every time I walked by, there were always kids and parents in there playing games. I learned partway through the con that actually every game that was provided in there was play to win, which is pretty awesome because that's a cool thing to do with your kids. Like not only do you get to go with your kids and have something your kids can do and play with them in a space that keeps you away from all the noise and everyone else, but every game they're playing there, they might get to bring home, which I just think is awesome and exciting. Like if I had younger kids, we'd just go and we'd try every game in that room before we go home. I think it's great to have this family gaming area.
Yeah, whenever we went past, there was people in there, and like the games in there looked like good games, and like there was a bunch of games that I would play. I'm like, I'd go in there, I'd play that.
Yeah, the only reason we didn't is we didn't want to take up a game for someone who had younger kids who probably might want to use them. We didn't want to take up the air.
It also was a lot quieter than the other gaming room, which I guess with kids is probably a bonus because there's not that many people and it's a lot, quieter.
Yeah. Did they have a chill-out room? I remember the chill-out room was not too far from the family room in 2019.
Apparently there was one, but I didn't see it. Like I didn't see a room labeled. I did not see a quiet room this year. If there was one, I don't even know if there was one because honestly, that is the one thing that did seem to slip since 2019. While I would still say this is one of the most inclusive and diverse cons I've ever been to, and that stands. There was some stuff that did seem to be missing. Like, again, I didn't see a quiet room. I think the quiet room was the media room that we got to use to record and that Sen used to record a podcast. And I know they were doing some panels in there as well. But the other one that would seem like a big omission to me is one of the things I really liked is they had clearly identified safety ambassadors in 2019. You would walk around the con and they had badges like armbands that signified that they were safe to people who were safe to approach about any issues you were having at the con of any type. Now, again, they're still doing a lot to encourage safety and diversity. They had X cards at every RPG table. I did question why they don't put it in the board game room, but we've had that debate on the show before. I personally think Session 0 and X cards are just important in some board games as they are to some RPGs, but I get that that's not commonly accepted yet. But at least they had them in the RPG rooms. And what was nice in the last time is on the other side, it did have additional safety tools for you to use and fully explained how to use them. So that was nice. So I was still there. I did check their website. I didn't see them posted there, but I'm sure they were somewhere. But they still have strong policies on harassment, inclusivity, violence, and things like that. So that was great to see. I was just bummed to find out that the safety ambassador program was not part of the show anymore. And that to me felt like a step backwards.
I do feel like if there was a quiet room, we definitely did not see it. And I feel like that is, if it wasn't there, something that was missing because some of the rooms are very loud and there's a lot of people. So I feel like if there wasn't a quiet room, please bring that back. It would be very helpful.
Yes.
So on that note, and we got a question from the chat room there. This was your first con. I know you've been to some of the smaller Windsor events, but this is your first sort of big full on con. Did you find it overwhelming, visual noise, otherwise, or were you pretty chill with it?
When we first got there, I'd say it was a little bit overwhelming just because new place and a lot of people. But on the first day, it was a lot quieter. On the second day, I would say it was louder. But most of the time, I wouldn't say I got very overwhelmed because I was like focused on doing something. But if I was just kind of in an area, sometimes it was a little overwhelming. Like just kind of being in one of the board game or RPG rooms, if you're not doing a board game or RPG, can sometimes be a little overwhelming.
Why we had base camp.
Yes. Now I have a question for you. Do you think your sister would have a problem?
Yes, definitely. Okay. I think maybe the loops would help because she has like the noise canceling loops or headphones, but I feel like she would get overwhelmed very easily. So I feel like, again, a quiet room would be helpful, or she probably would even just go back to the hotel room. I think maybe she could go for like 2 hours and then would need a break.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'd have to stick to the smaller room events. We probably would have spent some time in the family gaming room had you joined us. The other thing that seemed a little off, this was just like a kind of general vibe. So by the end of the con, it just felt like they're kind of busting at the seams. Like every square inch of floor 2 is taken up by Breakout Con, except for the one weird hallway where they actually have rooms where people are staying in the hotel. We ignore that. Except for that, every room and every corridor had something going on. Now, vendors are in the hallways. There's no exhibit hall at Breakout Con. And because of that, the hallways are a little constrained. Now, I will say the nice part is it never felt crowded. Like it never felt like you were never, elbow to elbow or anything like that. Pretty close in the RPG room. That's always been packed. And every time we wanted to play a game in the big board game room, despite how big it is and how many games there are and how many people are attending, we always found a spot. There was always somewhere we could sit down and play. We never had a problem finding a spot. So it's not like it's at capacity, but it felt like they needed more room for things. Like there should be more vendors or a better place for the vendors. And while that RPG room, the overflow helped. The overflow was awesome. I'm glad they had the overflow, but they need more than that. And just like they want the same rooms, but I want the tables more spread out. Like take that RPG room and cut half the tables out. Do a Thanos snap in that room, and I'd like that room so much better. I just think that they could use more space. And there was more this year, but I got to say they felt really close to capacity, if not over it.
Yeah, I think if you were just looking for a space in one of those rooms, if you're not a scheduled event, there isn't any. I'm like every table was full almost all of the time. Or if it's not full for a reason. And that's because someone's going to be there shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there is a whole other floor. Like if you go down the escalators when you first walk in the lobby, there is a whole ballroom exhibition area in the lower levels of the Sheraton. But I think part of what makes Breakout Con so great is that it is all together. You don't have to go, I mean, other than the panels up one floor, it's all there. So it's tough. And I'm sure there's cost issues as well. I'm sure there are. But there is other space at the Sheraton if they were able to take it over and wanted to.
Right. Whereas this year, that whole area was filled with orcs. Because happening at the same time as Breakout Con, and I'll never stop laughing about the fact that the area was filled with orcs, there was the Ontario Regional Convention for Alcoholics Anonymous. It took us 2 days to figure out that's what it was because everyone was just wearing signs that said orc on them, ORC. So the convention, the Sheraton Center was filled with orcs. They had something going on that basement floor. Now, thankfully, we didn't have any issues like we did at Gamma Expo and the Brick people, but there were people everywhere. So unlike Breakout, if you remember in 2019, if you did kind of want that break, you could go down to the lobby area and there were chairs there and you could sit and have a conversation and kind of chill out. No, there were orcs everywhere, taking up every chair, every space, all day, all night. I don't know if they were doing karaoke or if there was a live band in that music hall, but you could actually hear that in the board game room on the second floor. And orcs like to gather at escalators. And if you stepped outside, you learned that all orcs like to smoke and smoke a lot. Like stepping outside there, I used to be a smoker. This was horrible. Like you wanted to like and run to wherever you wanted to go. I think it'd be awesome if Breakout could get some of that space downstairs, like both for their sake of having more room. What I'd think is maybe separate the board games and the RPG, since they already do. Put them on separate floors. So like you have the RPG floor and the board game floor, or maybe have an actual exhibit area instead of just a whole bunch of vendors in the hallway. I think that's what I would think would work for that. And that way you're not sharing the space with other conventions that are going on. So I think it would be nice to have that space as well. But I get it. Like I'm sure there's a cost issue. It just very much like I don't know what the attendance was this year. I tried to look it up and it did. They haven't updated their website. It still says it's coming. So I was trying to figure out the attendance, and I kind of wonder what like their maximum attendance is, because I said it felt awfully tight. And again, not tight in a there's too many people and I'm bumping into them. Just like everything just kind of felt like it was bursting at the seams.
So speaking of space and gaming, in the past, there has been pickup gaming and, the home base and gaming happening everywhere in the rooms, in the hallways, etc. Was there any of that going on? Tech's asking.
Yeah,
I don't think we personally played any games outside of the actual event, like none in the hotel room or in the lobby or anything. But I think we definitely saw other people doing that.
So the area we called base camp previous year still existed with those kind of like movable couches and cushions, and groups did take up. There's like 3 pods of them, and there were often groups, and it seemed like people did like we did back in the day and kind of took over one area. So there were definitely some groups. The Ottawa area gamers, we'll just call them. It's a bunch of people I know, like Eric Paquette and Jason Pitt and some of them. Todd Crapper, that's where they were all kind of situated and hanging out in one area. That was across from the city hall room. Down further, it seemed to vary a lot, but there was like always someone sitting there. And there's tables at all these, and I saw a lot of people playing games. Now, the most played game I saw, and it's terrible, I'm not going to remember the name, is every attendee of Breakout this year got a free board game.
It was called Push.
What's that?
It was called Push.
It's called Push. There you go. It's from Ravensburger. Yeah. It's a push or luck card game. I saw a lot of people playing Push on these tables because it's a quick dice game. And I think people got their thing. They sat down and went, well, what's this? Someone opened it up, read the rules. So Ravensburger probably did a really good job of getting people to know about that game and seeing people play it. We brought home 3 copies because there were 3 of us. So if you come out to Windsor events, there may be some giveaways at some point for this game. But yeah, there was people. I don't know about hotels. Unlike Gamma Expo, I didn't learn about the secret Breakout after party this year. So I don't know if people were playing in their hotel rooms. Cool. I don't know if they did, but there was still overnight gaming. So one of the things that's actually kind of cool about Breakout is the game library closes at 11, but you can take out something at 10:59 and keep it. And as long as you return it the next day, and they take a piece of ID, so it's not like people are going to steal games, but then you can go play it, and rooms are open all night that you can go play, and you can go to your room and everything. So that's actually really cool. Overall, I know I had a couple negative things to say there at the end. They weren't terrible. They weren't horrible, just some small improvements. And like I said, they felt they were slipping back in a couple places, but I really enjoyed returning to Breakout. It had that riding bike feeling. Like I got there and I already knew the layout. Like the place isn't that big, and I kind of knew where things were going to be, and a lot of it didn't move. The painting area was in the same spot. The RPG room was twice as big because they removed the I don't know what they were doing. You could get into it through 2 different doors, and there was a divider halfway through. So it was bigger. The main board game hall was the same main board game hall. Some of the other stuff changed though, like where they did the playtesting room was different and things like that. It felt comfortable. It felt like home. Like 10 minutes in, I was comfortable walking around knowing that I wouldn't get lost or anything like that. Now our rep Yvonne was amazing. I don't think we've ever had so much red carpet treatment from a rep who just wanted us to have access to anything we needed, which it felt a little over the top, but I appreciated it. She was great about letting us know about what's going on or anything we might not want to miss. That's how I found out about the Sen and Erica's podcast recording. It was like, hey, they're recording in the media room right now. Go check it out. And that's how I got invited to the Eric Lang event and stuff like that. Like, she was great for that. Awesome for taking care of our needs. Again, she hooked us up so that Gwen got to meet with Gio and got her portfolio review, got us into the tournaments if we wanted to. We didn't take advantage of playing the tournaments, but we did get access. If we wanted to, we could have got in. It was great. I played some great games. I interacted with some awesome people. Like, it was fun as a gamer. Like, I had a great time as a gamer, but it was also a worthwhile con to attend as a content creator and as the Tabletop Bellhop. We made some great connections. Some of them are in the chat room here tonight, which is awesome. I'm looking forward to 2026. I am super hyped to go back, and hopefully we can go every year.
So, while we expect Moe and Dee are going to have a good time at an event like this, the real question, Gwen, is what did you think of Breakout as your first tabletop gaming convention?
I really liked it. I think it was very fun and very welcoming as a first con. It wasn't too overwhelming. There weren't too many people, and there was a lot of different things to do. I haven't been to any other cons, but I will say it was definitely a good introductory con, although I don't have anything else to compare it to yet, hopefully in the future. I would definitely go to more gaming conventions, and I had a really good time.
All right, so now here's the other question. Would you rather be going as an attendee just there to play games and have fun, or did you like being there as media?
I feel like I didn't get any different treatment for being media. It was more when I was with Dad that I got the different treatment as media. Most of the time, probably because people didn't realize I was media because I wasn't openly going, oh, I'm media. So I kind of did experience it as an attendee, I guess. So I don't really know if I have a preference.
Fair enough. All right, well, now that I think everyone has a good idea of what Breakout Con is about and already have some good reasons to why to go, we're going to dive into the actual games you played. But first, we have a message from our sponsor, Grand Gamers Guild.
So Easter's coming up quick, like a speedy rabbit there, but there's still time to pick up a fantastic Easter activity from Grand Gamers Guild. Right now, the Easter Escapade, set number 8 in the awesome holiday Hijinks series of 18-card escape room games, is on sale. You can get the physical game, a print and play copy, or a bundle with both at a reduced price up until the end of Easter weekend.
Every holiday, we'd normally tend to play one of the holiday Hijinks games. I've come to sort of expect them, and I'm looking forward to the Easter one this year. They're always like a fun break from the rest of the holiday activities, and it's really fun to solve puzzles with my family.
Well, you can pick up the game direct from Grand Gamers Guild, where you can also use our code BELLHOP to save an extra 10%. You should also be able to find it at your local friendly gaming store and most online game stores. Welcome to the Bellhop Tabletop, where we talk about the games we've been playing lately. This time, Moe and his daughter Gwendolen will be telling us about the games they played at Breakout Con, held at the end of March break in Toronto, Ontario.
So Breakout Con is first and foremost a gaming convention. It's a con you go to play games. Yes, there are some exhibitors and there's some panels and some special events. The main focus is on playing. There are lots of ways to play games, and they range from scheduled events, tournaments, play to win, publisher-hosted game, and demos, as well as open gaming.
One of the unique things at Breakout Con is that the gaming goes on for 24 hours.
Yes.
While the game library closes up at night, you can take out games before 11 and keep them overnight. And there are multiple open gaming rooms as well as the tournament room overnight. Not that you guys did any gaming yourselves.
No, we did a bit of late night gaming the one night that we did play a game after 11 and with a family who took out the game overnight, but we did not stay up all that late because there was lots to go to. So at this particular con, actually, Gwen was the first one to play a game out at the event besides me, because I did a sneaky dad thing and we were kind of wandering around and she was kind of sticking close to me, a little nervous for her first con. So I went and bought a coffee when we were on the path on the way back from lunch. And then I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go into the game room. I've got this coffee. Why don't you go off on your own? And she didn't want to do it at first. And I'm like, no, go. Just go on your own. I'll be right here with my coffee. Sure enough, I don't know how much longer. I finished my coffee. She hasn't come back. I go wander around and I find her playing with strangers in the open gaming room. So that was pretty awesome. And I got to say, I think that boost of confidence helped because we spent a lot of time apart at the con with each doing our own thing, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, so once we separated, I spent a while just sort of walking around the game room looking for a game to start. And eventually I found a sign that was like, oh, looking for players. And it was a couple setting up a game that I had never seen before, which was called Empire's End. So in this game, there was like a variety of different types of rounds, and every other round, a disaster would occur, and you have to spend resources to prevent disasters, or you can take the disaster, which will destroy a corresponding location, but you'll get like a bonus or action. So besides the disaster rounds, there was also like producing resources, building buildings, and battling. And my approach in the game was to just collect a bunch of endgame conditions that scored points for destroyed buildings and ransack my empire. This is apparently something that the people I was playing with had never seen someone do before, which is probably because it was a bad idea. But somehow I did end up with second place, even with being chaotic.
So the first game I played was with Gwen, and that was the new Star Realms Academy from Wise Wizard Games. Actually, technically, it's from their Wacky Wizard Games line. So you'd find that logo on the box. And this is something they're doing with more family accessible games. And this is basically a family accessible version of Star Realms. Still a 2-player dueling card game, but much simplified. You instead of having to track your stuff, you have a board to track your honor, as well as the coins you earn to buy stuff. Your hand's only 3 cards, which, man, does that ever feel weird? And there are only 3 factions in the deck. The costs have all been adjusted, so every card's 5 or less, and there's no escort, so there's no card that's always available. Now, the actual cards are the cards from the original game with the same names and similar themes, but they're all simplified. The most expensive card is only 5, and most of the things either just generate coins, generate honor to heal you or do damage, or let you draw additional cards. And yes, it still has the Star Realms combo thing where if you manage to play cards from the same color, they can go off with extra abilities. Now, one twist that I actually thought was fascinating, and I almost want to try this in regular Star Realms, is that coins and damage it to bases carried over between turns. So you actually had damage tokens you would put on the base. And if it didn't wipe out the base, the damage stayed. So if someone got out that like nasty 5-strength base and you couldn't do like it when you only have 3-handed cards, you know, your 3 Vipers aren't going to be able to take that base out ever. So it was neat because it would stack over. And I actually liked being able to say with the coins, because again, you only had 3 cards. So getting up to be able to buy one of those 5 cards almost seems impossible because there weren't a lot of ships that generated resource, but all you had to do was keep playing your, I forget what the non-scouts, I think they're scouts. You just had to play your 3 scouts, collect the coins, the next turn, play 2 more scouts, and then you could buy that big card. So I thought that was neat. Like that was something that literally changed the feel of Star Realms in an interesting way. Honestly, my only disappointment with this is I want it to be compatible because I adore the artwork. Like I especially love the green blob ships, look super cute and look like whales and dolphins and stuff. And I adore the new artwork, even though I know it's like kidified, but I want a cute version of Star Realms, but I want the full game. I don't want the simplified version.
Yeah, since I regularly play Star Realms online, but still, the only thing I found a little annoying was taking the actual physical coin markers, since I'm used to just sort of counting the money in my head. So if I didn't have overflow, I honestly just wouldn't take the coin markers because they were just annoying to be like, okay, I take the coins, I spend the coins, because I'm used to just like, I have the card. The card is the 2 coins or whatever. But altogether, I think it was like a really good simplified version of Star Realms, and that it still had like the same feel as the original game, even with it being so simplified.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting thing with the building up data. I wonder, was the Star Empire as powerful? Like you say you only have 3 cards, but if you get 3 Star Empires and you can just keep pulling cards from your deck using Star Empire combos. Seems like you could still manage to pull out a 6.
That was in it. I think it was blue, red, and green were the only. Oh no,
no, red was removed. Red was removed.
So yellow was
still there. Yellow was the Star.
I don't remember. I don't think there was anything for you to discard. I think the Star Empire cards all let you draw extra instead of making you discard. From what I remember.
I think so, yeah.
We only played the one game. Sorry, we didn't deep dive it. I don't know. It was neat enough. Like if you're looking for a kid Star Realm, get it. If you have younger kids and want to introduce them to deck building, get it. But I didn't feel any reason for us to pick it up. Maybe it would go well at our Walkerville events, but like I'd rather just sit down and teach you Star Realms, even if you're fairly young, because I don't find the original game all that complicated. Next up, two of us played another game, Maki Master from KTBG. I've been curious about this one for a bit now. I actually was curious about this back when it was originally a Play to Z game called Wasabi. They had this in the Play to Win, and what was nice is it was the Kickstarter Deluxe Edition. Now, we kind of mentioned this earlier. The only bad part about that is people did not put it away properly, and this is a game that, if it's put away properly, is one of the quickest to set up games I've played because of the included trays. Unfortunately, they were not, which was kind of a mess. So we spent more time, I think, organizing the trays at the beginning. Not them playing, but it was definitely longer than I would have liked to have spent. Now, this is a very neat game about making sushi by putting ingredients on a tatami mat and matching order cards in your hand. There's some neat mechanics, and Kids Table Board Games totally nailed the whole, wait, this is a kid's game? This is just a good game. Hobby gamers are going to love it. Now, we're going to be reviewing this one later in the show, but do you have anything you want to say about Maki Master now?
It was really fun. I honestly, while we were playing it, I sort of forgot that it was a kid's game. It's definitely applicable to like any age. It's just a good game.
Next up for me, speaking of Kids Table Board Games, I actually sat down and had a sit-down meeting with Sean, and he showed off some new stuff coming from them this year, and they are super excited for a set of small box games, cute, kawaii little games from Daryl Chow. One is a 2-player only dice game called Cube Melt, Getting Dicey, where you're rolling dice Yahtzee style and spending them to try to make your opponent melt before you do, which was just cute and had awesome artwork and super small footprint. Like you could play this on a plane tray, like an airplane tray, or easily on a train. Like this is just a great little 2-player dicey push your luck neat game. Next was Chock-a-Block, where you're trying to build an apartment block. And you're trying to match colors. And once you match 4 colors on the block, you can have people move in. And then the people who move in have different elements where you can score points. Like if you get a chain of cats, or you get underwear hanging out to dry, if you can make a chain of them. This is a bigger game. This does play 1 to 5 players and looked like a lot of fun, and also had awesome looking cute artwork. The last one is a very approachable, family-friendly card game called Oh My Orchids. A very colorful game about collecting seeds and growing orchids in Singapore, which I guess is a thing. Now, this actually was a 2023 UK Games Expo Best Card Game nominee for the Singaporean edition of the game. So Kids Table will be bringing that to North America. Now, again, all 3 of these games are from Daryl Chow, and should be coming out soon. They all looked fantastic for what they were, like smaller, family-friendly boxes.
I believe while we were there, I saw people even like playing Oh My Orchids a couple times. I think I spotted people playing that one.
Oh, that's possible. I know a lot of the Play to Win games were the stuff that the publishers who were there were showing off. Like there was a Play to Win copy of, well, again, Maki Master was a Play to Win, and that's Kids Table Board Games. I know there was a copy of Earth in there. Inside Up Games had donated Perch, so I'm pretty sure it was one of them, one of the Play to Win the games, which makes sense.
And for those of you who don't recognize the name Daryl Chow, he's also one of the designers of the Artemis Project.
Yes.
So he does a wide range of weights in games.
Now, while with Sean, I also got to see Campfire. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This is a new game coming from the designers of Fromage, a cozy game about summer camping that involves 2 different types of bidding, which is significant to me because, again, this is a kid's game, and I don't remember ever seeing a kid's game with bidding. Now, the bidding you have in this is there's card-based bidding where everyone has like cards number. I don't remember the number, say 1 to 6. And you're bidding to take tokens, and the tokens are all kinds of camping things like tents and tools or raccoons and food. And it's one of those games where you have to play all your cards. Once you play them all, you can pick them up again. But then at the end of the round in the night phase, you have to build a campfire at the end of the night. and people have to do a blind bid with a fist for the amount of wood they're contributing. And then the amount, whoever contributes the most wood gets a thing. And then there's a thing about toasting marshmallows. It looks really cute. It sounds perfect for kids' table board games. Fromage has been going gangbusters. Really looking forward to this. But my gosh, I am shocked Sean showed me this game, because you want to talk about prototype. Like this is, you know, they have no artwork yet. It's like scribbles on scraps of paper almost. You can check my social media feed. I've shared pictures of this one a couple times, because we actually had a worldwide premiere on my Blue Sky account. I was the first person who ever shared a picture of Campfire. Now, no, Campfire is a code name for what this game. They have not finalized the final game. But thanks, Sean, for giving me a look at something new.
So for one of the games that I ended up playing, this is actually going to be the RPG that I talked about earlier. So I was left to kind of wander the con, and I signed up for Dragonbane Chaos in Oxford. I was playing as like a wolf fighter, which was one of the like preset characters that we got to choose from, because we just had some different character sheets to choose from since it was like beginner. It was very sandboxy, which I've been told is a little bit odd for a con game. They normally supposedly have like rigid plotline, but instead we had a lot of different storylines going on simultaneously. Originally, our group was like focused on this storyline of like a troll, but then we got roped into a battle with living pumpkins, and we went back to the inn, and then that led to like finding a witch living under the inn and focusing on that instead. But there was also mentions of like the mayor's daughter was ill. There were problems with goblins. There was a mysterious deity called the Maggot Queen. There were so many loose ends, but it was a great time, and the people I played with were really cool.
Excellent.
Next up for me was getting to watch Eric Lang design a game. I talked about this more earlier. What I do want to talk about here is what it is. So what is happening is Arcane Academy is a game that came out in 2020 and got missed because of all the other crap going on in 2020. It was also published by IDW, which is a company who is no longer around and who wasn't known for producing the biggest games. So he was reached out to, and I stink at this because I did not know who the new publisher is, but the game has a new publisher. I do not remember who it was, and it's not in my notes. So he is now working on Arcane Academy 2, and we got to see inside Eric's head, and it was awesome because we sat down and we took the boards from the base game, and he put out tiles from the base game, and he went, okay, we're going to play this game. It's going to work like this. And these tiles, ignore all these arrows on them. Okay, these tiles that used to generate your resources instead now are storage for resources. And when you get a resource, you're going to put it on the tile, and you can only hold as much as your storage. And then we're going to draw out some tiles, and he would literally put tiles out and be like, throw one over his shoulder, like, oh, no, that doesn't work. And then there were cards you could buy with your resources, and he'd read a card, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. Read that card, he's like, ooh, who designed that one? That one's good. And then you play another one, he's like, well, that's stupid. That doesn't work in here. And he was like literally doing this. And we're playing, we're playing this game for like half an hour, 45 minutes, and he suddenly stops, and he goes, nah, done. Everyone okay? Okay. He wipes everyone's boards. Okay, so now the game doesn't have a buying phase. Let's try again. And like we literally went through multiple iterations of Arcane Academy 2, which was fascinating. The game is looking interesting, very different from the original game. So if you do know the original, it will be different than that. It is a wizards dueling in a school themed game with some really neat mechanics going on, especially his resource management system he'd come up with was very cool. So look for a new version of Arcane Academy coming out soon, and like go to Breakout because you might get to sit down with Eric Lang and see inside his head.
Which may be a good thing, maybe a bad thing. It all sort of depends on how into chaos you can be.
Yes, it was definitely fascinating. The man has designed hundreds of games at this point. He's extremely prolific, and I do like a large number of his games. Next up was a 3-player game of Nun Attack, Temple of Ice from Cosmos. Anyone who listened to our Origins coverage last year would have got to hear a bit about this game because Deanna and I got a demo of this, but it was the briefest of demos where everyone at the table took 2 turns. So this was a chance for me to actually try the full game. And it was kind of funny because I grabbed the game and I had Gwen, and I'm like, it's definitely better with more than 2 players. We need to find a 3rd player. So we took the looking for players sign and we put that out and we kind of killed some time, and I got the box open and I'm sorting the components and I'm flipping through the rules and we're not getting anyone, right? So then I tell Gwen, I'm like, hold the box above your head. And she's looking at me like, what? And I'm like, no, seriously, just hold the box up like this. Just to make sure it's above your head. She's like, yeah, okay. And just give me this, Dad, you don't know what you're doing. Look, sure enough, within like 3 minutes, someone walks over and goes, oh, are you willing to teach this? And I'm like, yep, sit right down. There we go. We have our third player. We could have probably gotten a fourth one, but we didn't.
Yeah, I was just sort of holding the game box. I'm like, my arm is getting tired. Why am I holding this? And then someone actually comes over and I was like, oh, okay, it does work.
Yep. So pro tip to anyone who goes to any of these game conventions, if you're looking for players, even better than the signs that say look for players, someone's holding a box above their head, you can do it. But if you see someone else, that means they're looking for people. If you're really desperate, you walk around the hall, up and down the aisles holding it. Don't be the jerk, though, that starts yelling, looking for 3 for blah, 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 while other people are trying to play. Like that might work at a public play event, but not at something as big as Breakout. As for Nun Attack, I loved it. It is really good. It has fantastic table presence. It's a game that if I bring that at a Walkerville, people are going to walk over and go, what the heck is this? It's a card drafting game, but every card you draft gives you end game scoring, and they're all different. Like builders score one way, and I don't remember the names of the various cards. Leaders give you a special ability, and whatever. Scouts do this, and there were some kind of tribesmen with different weapons that all score different ways. But what person you take, what type you take, determines where you put a pillar, and it's like a 3D, three-dimensional block of ice looking pillar that you put on the map. Well, once there are 4 pillars placed in a square, you now put a new layer, a new tile on top to build the map up, building this temple. And it actually kind of like feels like the dots and squares game that many of us grew up playing. There's some majority scoring. You get bonuses for building on top of your own pillars. And then at the end of the game, whoever has the most pillars on the edges gets to put the top on the temple and get some bonus points. And it's just really neat. And the scoring really reminds me of anyone who knows Concordia, which is a fantastic Euro resource management exploration civ building game. But it's got the same thing where the guard cards you collect in the game is how you score at the end. And there's also similarities, I would say, to Deus or other, we figured out the term for this the other day, and I forget, melding games. I think it might be melding games where you're playing the same types of cards on top of each other, make them score more points. This is good. I will be reaching out to our Cosmos contact to see if we can help them promote this game.
Yeah, I did really like this game. It was really cool, though I might be a little bit biased since I did win when we played. But I thought that the pieces in the pyramid were really unique, and I liked how it had so many different ways to score and how you could just like kind of specialize on anything.
Sounding more and more like your mother. I love this complex game that there's so many different possible ways to win and do.
If we could ever get the other daughter on, you'll get a totally different story. Next was our one late night game. We are looking for something to play at the end of the evening, and we were actually looking for something quick. This is where I was trying to show Gwen Ascension, and they didn't have a copy. And there was a family up there that approached us. They said, hey, are you looking for something to play? We're looking for something to play. Why don't we get all our groups joined together to play something? And they wanted to play something play to win. That's all they cared. Well, I noticed Perch from Inside Up Games was there, and I offered to teach Perch. I'm like, I know this game actually pretty well because I had just played it the week before at Adam with the game's designer. So that seemed to go really well. Like we took the game, we went into the overnight gaming room. We stayed up a little late. I think my teach went well. Everyone seemed to get the game. The fact they didn't ask a lot of questions, I thought was good. No one grabbed the rule book to check anything. Competition was fierce because this game is still honestly the most nasty, cozy game you'll ever play. Supposed to be a cute game about birds trying to find perches, and there's a lot of bird slaughter in that game, though they don't quite call it that. There was a lot of back and forth. The end game score was super close. Oddly though, like we finished the game and I was like, how was it? And they're like, yeah, it was okay. I don't think I need to own this.
Personally, I really enjoyed Perch because I love like be mean to your friends and family games, and this is definitely one of them. The ties in this game are absolutely brutal. Like if you tie, no one gets anything at all. So you can just like tie someone to be mean, especially since it has the mechanic of placing both your own pieces and some pieces from other players. So you can be like, oh, I won't use my piece, but I'll use this person's piece. Tie those two people, and then you've made two enemies. So makes it extra fun. And I think that's really unique for an area majority game to be able to place other players' pieces.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's the big standout mechanic there. It's an area majority game where you not only place your own pieces, you will be placing the pieces of your opponents. Now, I mentioned earlier, Inside Up Games was there. And Perch is an Inside Up game. They had their own room with Kids Table board game. Despite spending a week with Connor, they did have a game set up there. I was determined to play before I left Breakout. This was the one thing I was going to get done. Every time I walked down the hall, I peeked my head in, and as Sean noted, this was the 18XX room in 2019. I peeked my head in and see if there was room to play Earth. Now, at one point, I did that. I peeked in and I saw two people sitting there looking kind of impatient, like they were waiting. So I walked up and I said, "Can I join you?" And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry. This is a scheduled event that is set to start at noon, and we already have 4 players. But that's in 10 minutes, and we only have 2 so far. So if the other 2 players don't show up, you're welcome to take a seat." So that was cool. I went out and I talked to the Toronto area gamers and some of the vendors that were in that area, and hung out and looked through a couple RPG books at the booth that was there. And then came back. And when I got back, the one chair had filled in, but there was still an empty spot. So that was awesome. I got to sit down. Now, it's kind of weird because I raved about this game last week, even though this is my first play. It just happens to be because of the order our episodes are coming out. So I'm just going to reiterate that this was awesome. Earth is fantastic. This game was a great teach. The teacher was fantastic. Obviously, I taught the game many times. The game just makes sense. The people I played with were awesome. It was a family, a dad with his son, and the son was really, really good and just laser focused on anything that earned points and destroyed us all, like by 60 points. And I remember at the end, the organizer saying that was the highest score of the con. But we just had a great time planting flora, growing spouts, composting cards. I was so sold on this that as soon as I got home, the first thing I did when we got home was to unbox my copy of Earth, not live. I just, opened it up and packed it because Deanna and I were going out of town to celebrate being done all these cons. And I brought it because I needed to show her.
Yeah, I didn't get to play it at the con, but I did get to play it last week. And I do really enjoy Earth. I think it's a very interesting game. But at the con, one of the last games that I did get to play was not one I was not one that I was planning on playing at all. So me and Dad were both like walking down the hall that had like the separate, like quieter, separate different like excess board game and RPG rooms. And suddenly we were like called from one of the rooms by a group of people. And they were like, hey, we're starting Blood on the Clock Tower. Do you want to join? And I had never played Blood on the Clock Tower before, but I've kind of always wanted to try it because it just seems fun. And I've seen it played like at our local gaming events sometimes. So I was like, yeah, I'll play. And I was the librarian, meaning like I knew neutral players and some stuff. So in this case, I knew that 2 people were possibly drunk. And this information ended up being one of the things that we focused on trying to figure out who was evil. But we failed to find the demon, and I lost. Or so I thought. Turns out that the entire time I was actually a marionette, meaning that I was evil, but thought I had a good role. Which was probably why my information was not helping us figure out who was evil, because it was just wrong. My information was fully incorrect, but also led to me winning, I guess, unintentionally.
So you didn't know you were the marionette? That
No,
was the
I
part
did
I
not.
missed when you told the story before.
They could have told me, but just chose not to. And so I just thought I was the librarian this whole time.
So we're definitely going to have to get... We're definitely going to have to get Gwen involved in some of the Susian Blood on the Clock Tower local events that are going on.
Yeah, unfortunately, those are adult-only events at this time. Already did the reach out there. Next up was a totally unplanned game for me. That was kind of the same thing. And honestly, this is pretty normal at Breakout Con and something you should look forward to. I was walking up and down the big board game room and some guy at a table said, "You look like you need a game to play." And I'm like, sure. He was one of the reps from ELO Games, who was there promoting all kinds of games they've localized to Canada. which just seems weird to me. We always talk about companies localizing to North America, but like these were specifically to Canada, and games I recognize. Now, the game he taught me and a couple of strangers, he also recruited Sushi Dice. Super light game, roll a bunch of D6s with 6 different symbols, trying to match face-up cards. Just keep rolling like mad. No turns, no Yahtzee rules. Just keep rolling until you get a match. The fun bit, though, is if you roll a skull, your opponent notices. They can be like, yuck, and you got to start over. Again, I talked about this one last week, so I'm not going to get into details. Here, it is a silly, fun, over-the-top, loud game that also features a bell. So when I played this, I said, you know what? This isn't really my kind of game, but I host events in Windsor, Ontario, and one of them's at a brewery. And I think this would go over awesome at our brewery event. And he literally gave me the game and said, have fun showing this one off. So we brought that one home.
Yeah, I've been bringing it out to board game club events, and so far we haven't played it yet, but I think it'll also be a great match there once I can get people actually playing it. Has a similar vibe to Gelatinous, if Gelatinous was even more actually a game, because it's gelatinous, but at board game club, I think people are really going to like it.
Now, my last game of the con happened while wandering the hall with Gwen, and I spotted a dude with a copy of Dominion with a sign that he was looking for a teacher. Knowing the game well and wanting Gwen to actually experience the godfather of deck building, because we've learned that some of her favorite mechanics are deck building and she loves Star Realms and some of the other games in that thing. I'm like, hey, play the original, kind of like we did with Sean a little while back. So we sat down and played an interesting game. Is about all I want to say. Is this player was having a very difficult time wrapping his head around some of the mechanics and was making mistakes as he played. And eventually, I just realized he's not going to get it. So we were just kind of letting him do what he wanted to do, and we kind of played our own game. Because as I said before, Breakout Con is very inclusive and accepting. And I think this person did have some exceptionality. So we kind of let him do his own thing, and he was having fun, and we played a game together. I think everyone knows my opinions on Dominion. It's well done. I think it was great for what it is at the time, but I like a little more meat in my deck builders, and I much prefer variable markets to static markets. What did you think of Dominion, Gwen?
So for Dominion, I really like that there were like so many different cards you could use, making the game slightly different every time you played. And I enjoyed how cool it felt when you got a combo with all the different cards together, especially the ones that gave you more actions. The problem with the actions, though, was keeping track of how many actions you have, which having now played the digital one, that's something that I feel is very useful in there, is you can track how many actions you have. But in person, it's like, I'm counting on my fingers. Do I have 3 left? I might have 3 left. Did I use that one? Who knows? Either way, it was really fun, and I would definitely play it again.
Ooh, more deck builder addicts.
Yeah, so that's it. Oh, you didn't talk about one in particular. I think you need to talk about. You played a game I did not play, and that was Sinoda.
Oh, yeah, I entirely forgot to put that on here. So, Sinoda was, I had noticed it on the event list, and I was like, oh, there's a beat the game designer at their own game thing, and I'm like, it seems like it's an abstract strategy game. I'd looked at it, and I was like, oh, all right, sure, sounds fun. So we go and we find it, and I got to play, and it was very fun. I did not win, but it was still very fun. And it has this unique thing where you're using the 4-sided dice and sort of moving them around, which I thought was interesting, because I personally have not played any other games that had similar mechanics like that, where you are both moving dice and can roll them up and down. It was quite fun.
Yeah, and stay tuned to hear even more about Sinoda, because that's going to be our first review after we wrap this up. I think we got everything. I don't think we missed any games at this point. And I realize for GameCon, we're like, there are tons of games. That may not sound like a lot of games, but we also spend a lot of time talking, chilling, hanging out with people. One of the things that's a mistake people make when they go to cons is focusing too much on the gaming and not taking time for themselves. We made sure to leave the convention center every day for meals. We tended to go down to the path. We had found a place that did these Jamaican patties that were really good. And oh my God, compared to the con price, we were able to both eat with 4 patties and 2 pops for $5. And they were good. So what was it called? Do you remember?
Patties Express, perhaps? I think it was something similar to that. I've got a photo on my phone, but.
And then there was a really good coffee place that was just next to it. So I would grab a coffee on the way back. We did hit downtown a bit, walked up Yonge Street just to have the experience of doing so, because when you're in Toronto, you kind of have to do it. And Gwen found the most awesome store ever that we had to leave, or she would have spent all of her money. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, so while we were walking around like outside, actually, we were walking to one of the restaurants that we went to for dinner, and we saw this store, and it was all pink and full of arcade machines, and it was called like Octo something. And I was like, I cannot go in here or I will spend all my money because there is a wall of Pokemon plushies. Do not let me go into this store unsupervised.
And what it was every one was a claw machine. It was an entire arcade of claw machines. It was really kind of over the top. So yeah, if you go to a con, make sure you spend time. We also tried to make sure to get 8 hours sleep and didn't overdo it. But overall, I was super impressed by the variety of games I saw. The RPG selection was fantastic. This is not a con where you can go and play the two RPGs, D&D and Pathfinder, right? Like the amount of indie game representation here is fantastic, including many designers there running their own games. Todd Crapper, friend of the show, friend of mine, was there to show off his new game, High Plains Samurai Volume 2. And I guess that game went amazing. I looked it up in the app, and unfortunately it was full, so I didn't get to do it, but I got to talk to Todd otherwise. I thought that was awesome. There were so many RPGs. There were board games. While I didn't play any RPGs, they were always hopping, and I was tempted. The other thing I did do in some way, I did spend a lot of time, was helping people with questions. At one point, I set up a 2-player game of Arcs because I had recently played it at the Adam Gamers Retreat. And I'm like, oh, I know how that card works here. And I totally set up their game. And I'm like, please invite me to play. They didn't. I walked away sad. The Tabs Gaming Library staff loved me because I kept helping them identify lost game components. I'd be like, oh, this is from here. Oh, those dice on your table, they're for 20 strong. I know that's in the print and play. And it got to the fact that they would wave me over. Like I'd be walking around and they'd be like, Mo, come over. Like, do you recognize this one? And I was able to help them out. So that was pretty funny. Like, honestly, if you attend cons to play games, if you like that, you got to go to Breakout. Like there is such a great mix of classic games, new games. There's publishers there showing off their new hotness, as well as people playing the classics. I saw people playing it had to be an 8-hour long game of Food Chain Magnate, or maybe they played twice, but I'm pretty sure it was the same game. This is also a great place to play games with the designers. The amount of industry guests they invite, and again, they're not special snowflakes put off in a special area that you got to like get by a paywall. No, you could just sit down in the gaming area and end up playing with the game's designer or the artist. Most of the scheduled gaming events were hosted by the designers or publishers, and you just don't get that at a local game night. Like that's the thing that puts us above. Like, especially if you're in Toronto, I'm sure there are lots of options. Tabs cons, like I don't know how often, every other month or once a quarter, but there's just something special about Breakout and the guests they bring. Gwen, any final thoughts on at least the games?
I think that the games that I played were all really good, and you could play games as much as you wanted there. There was just so many opportunities to join in on games in the gaming rooms. There was so many different like types of games, so many actual games physically there with the gaming collection, the different like play to win games, the kids games in like the kids gaming room, the RPGs. Like no matter what you wanted to do, there was something that you could do.
Yeah, the only thing I actually did not see this year was any LARP. Now, I know when we were there in 2019, there were 2 of those mega LARP games that go over multiple days. Blood on the Clock Tower was probably as close as I saw to that this year. Now, again, it might have been on the schedule and I missed it, but I didn't see a space for that where there was previous years.
Oh, it's funny. You say, oh, this is not the place you go to play D&D or 5e. The only place Deanna has ever played 5th Ed D&D was at Breakout Con.
Was it Breakout? I thought it was
Breakout.
I thought it was Queen City Conquest.
And also, if you are younger, and if you're in your 20s and you don't regularly get to game where you are, go ahead, play 24 hours a day for 3 days straight.
Yeah,
take
fair.
some time for yourself afterwards. But once you're into your 30s and beyond, definitely take the time for yourself and make sure you get out and take a walk and hydrate properly all the time.
Hydrate. There. I'll call out one more thing. Breakout and the Sheridan Center, Sheridan Center is amazing for having water everywhere. You can't turn without seeing water freely available. There are pitchers of water. There are, I don't know what you call them, Brita machines, whatever. They're everywhere. Water is everywhere. You can get water everywhere. For some, and I'm sure for some of the publishers, this is possibly scary. There's so much water, but like compared to other conventions we've attended, including some recently, keeping hydrated was not a concern at all, which is a great fact there. And the other reminder is amazing food is just outside the door to the left at the chef's hall. Because seriously, like next Breakout, every meal, I think I'm going to go there.
All right, well, folks, what have you been playing lately? Let us know in the comments, or better yet, share it in the What You've Been Playing section of our Discord. Sinoda is a fascinating abstract strategy game using D4 dice from indie Canadian publisher BS Games that Moe and Gwen brought home from Breakout Con 2025.
Yeah, I got to thank Scott and Bill, the B&S and BS Games, for hooking us up with a review copy after we had a nice long chat about their game, publishing in Canada, and some ideas I had for what they could do to help get the word out there for their game. Though I still think the biggest thing that impressed them was that Gwen here played in a Beat the Designer game and impressed the heck out of Bill by almost beating him in his own game.
I don't think it's quite as close as you're making it seem. I definitely did not win the game, and as it being my first time ever playing, it was a little bit confusing at the start, so...
I don't know. I think you did surprisingly well. There was a look of shock on Bill's face after a couple of your moves.
Well, Sinoda plays 2, 3, 4, and 6 players, with the game time really depending on the experience of the players, their differing skill levels, and just how long everyone chooses to think about their moves. It's listed as ages 7 and up, but we could see younger players playing this. If you can understand chess, you can easily pick up Sinoda.
Now, the game length really is variable here. I was really surprised. It does play rather long. This is not a quick filler abstract. Like, don't think of one of those, wooden gigamic games. This is a brainy thinker that is quite the battle of wits.
So there aren't that many components in Sinoda. It's just a set of 6 D4 dice for each player, a 2-sided player board, one side for 2 players and the other for more, and coaster-like discs that people put the pieces on that they capture.
The dice are standard D4 RPG dice, the type where you read the number at the top and the component quality is good. A neat bonus is that the box itself can be used to play on, and we've noticed some people on BGG with custom-made wooden boards, which isn't surprising. The rulebook is short and clear and contains just enough examples to make learning the game straightforward.
Like many of the best abstract strategy games, the basic rules here are really simple. After each player has set up their dice on the board, all set to 1 on a circle equidistant from the other players, they only have 2 options. You can either move one of your dice, exactly the number of spaces shown on the die, or you can roll one of your dice up or down by 1, leaving it in the space you are in. Note, you can't roll over, so you can't turn a 1 to a 4 or a 4 to a 1.
So when you're moving your dice, you can only move into adjacent spots, and you can only move 1 space at a time. So you can't move over any other pieces. You can't move into your opponents of your own. So to capture a piece, you have to land exactly on the spot it's on, which does mean that you can easily get stuck in corners. Say, like if you have a higher numbered die, it's really easy to get it stuck because you can't move less than the number on your die.
Capturing is where things get interesting, because each captured die is worth a number of points equal to its value when captured. So in this game, rolling up your dice means they can move farther and are significantly more powerful, but they are also more valuable to your opponents if captured.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing that makes this game work so well. Now, the game does end when each player has only 1 die left on the board, when a single player is eliminated completely, or when 1 player collects 6 opponent pieces. Then the player with the highest total of captured dice is the one who wins.
In 2-player games, there's also a special win condition called winning by Sinoda. You win this way if you manage to reduce all your pieces to 1s, and the total value, if those pieces were captured, won't win your opponent the game.
For example, if you are at 9 capture points and your opponent has 5, and you only have 3 dice left on the board, You can roll them all down to 1 to win, because then even if every one of them was captured, that opponent would only have a total of 8 and cannot win.
Now, except for that one exception, that one special way to win, which only happens when you're playing 2 players, like there really isn't much here, right? Like it's move a die, what it shows, or roll it up or down. It sounds super simple, and that's it. You now know how to play. It really is that simple mechanically, but there is a ton of depth to this game. This is the most chess-like abstract strategy game I have played. Like sitting down with the designers at Breakout, we got to hear about classic mistakes. The first move Gwen did, I remember their opponent saying, "Oh, yep, that's a classic mistake people make." Right. So there's like there are like bad opening moves, and they talked about different openings, and they talked about both designers were talking about how partway through the game your strategy has to change, and the conversation honestly sounded like people talking about a game of chess.
Yeah, it's so easy to end up with like a piece just entirely stuck or just one wrong move, and you're like, oh, that's not what I meant to do.
Well, the 2-player game is nice and tight. It's a tight duel of wits. It's challenging. I love that you can play this game with more. Like, honestly, I could see this being a 2-player only game, but it is much more chaotic and interesting to me when playing with 3 or 4. Personally, I found 3 to be the sweet spot after trying different player counts. Like 4 was good, but it was a little chaotic, and the players opposite each other didn't interact with each other as much as I wanted. It was more with the players to the adjacent. Where with 3, I found it much more interesting. And there were strategies where I would leave a die out so that one player would capture it, but it was actually guarded by my opponent, which just felt smart. I did enjoy it. Now, we did not try the game with 6. The designers did warn us. It's pretty much total chaos. Good for fun and a bit of a lap, but not the best way to play. So I apologize, we can't report on this 6-player game ourselves. I will also note, we didn't call it out specifically, but Sean didn't list the number. You cannot play this game with 5. Just the design of the board they're using in this game just doesn't accommodate 5 players being equidistant from each other. They're still thinking about it. They're still working on it, but so far it's a 2, 3, 4, or 6-player game.
I will say, in a 3-player game compared to a 4-player game, the 4-player game, it felt like you kind of battled against one person, or could easily be turned on by the 2 people closest to you, and it's harder for you to interact with the person on the opposite side of the board. Whereas in the 3-player game, the 2 other players that you're playing with are both your neighbors, so it's easy to be attacked by or attack both players.
Sinoda just has this feeling of a classic game. Like it feels like a game that's been around forever, like a long time. Like it should be up there with some of the games humans have been playing for years. And I totally mean that as a compliment. If you dig deep abstract strategy games with super simple rules, but a ton of tactical and strategic depth, games where you're going to need to plan multiple turns ahead, and something's going to mess that up and you're going to have to rethink those plans, I think you're going to love Sinoda. Now, the one thing to watch for, though, is that this is a thinky game, and it's a longer game. It's much heavier and harder to play, well, than it looks. Like when you just look at the game, when I first saw it, I expected it to be quite different. I thought it was going to be about tumbling your dice, where you're like rolling them over to the other spots and the numbers matter somehow. And I thought it was going to be more of a silly, quick, abstract game, maybe something like Triominoes or something with D4s. That is not this. This is a brain-burning test of skill for 2 or more players. And if that's not your jam, you are not going to enjoy this game. So it's not for everyone.
Even compared to other like abstract strategy games that I've played recently, I'd say it's on the heavier side of abstract strategy games. Like this is definitely more complicated than say like Zensu or something like that.
Yeah, despite being a game that heavily features dice, there is no randomness in Sinoda. Everything here is open information and player driven. I suspect if this is coming out at our Walkerville game nights, this is going to be one of those games where I ask people, how do you guys want to leave here tonight? Do you want to like each other or not? And this is going to go in the pile with Zensu, where you might walk out not loving the other people you're with.
Now, I will, since Deanna is not here, throw in her 2 cents about that, since you did bring up her favorite abstract strategy game. I will admit she did say, yeah, it's no Zensu, but she did really enjoy Sinoda. She did also enjoy it more with multiple players. I don't know. That's about all I have to say. There's not a lot to the game, but it's a very enjoyable experience. To me, this was a total lucky find at Breakout. It's one of the reasons I'm actually glad we went, because I had a great interaction with the game's designers and I really enjoyed the game. If I hadn't last minute decided that we're going to go up to Breakout, I would have probably totally missed this fantastic Canadian abstract game. Do you have anything else you feel you need to say about Sinoda before we wrap things up?
Don't believe so. It was generally a really fun game. I love abstract strategy games, this being no exception. I think it's going to go really well at like Walkerville Brewery events, even board game club and stuff. And yeah, it's good.
So there you go. Everything you need to know about Sinoda from BS Games, except where to get a copy. Depending on where you are in Ontario, you may be able to find Sinoda at your friendly local gaming store. It's also available at some Canadian online game stores. For most of you, though, you're going to want to order it directly from BS Games at bsgames.ca.
Now, unfortunately, due to current events, if you are in the U.S., you may end up stuck paying duty, custom fees, and tariffs. With the uncertainty right now, BS Games has chosen to keep their price point the same, but ship the game duties unpaid. To account for things that changing daily at this point, it's a crappy situation, but they wanted us to call this out so that people are aware and aren't surprised or upset if they get hit by a charge when it does arrive.
To make up for some of that, we've got a little treat for our fans, so you can use code BELLHOP at checkout to save 10% on any order direct from BS Games.
A kids game about making sushi by Kids Table Board Game? Sign me up.
Maki Master is the follow-up to Wasabi, originally published by Z-Man Games. Though this is a complete redesign of the game by the original design team, consisting of Josh Capel and Adam Gretzbian, with drool-worthy new artwork from Claire Lynn. This game is being published by Kids Table Board Games, or KTBG, who we do have to thank for hooking us up with a review copy at Breakout Con.
My dad and I actually played Maki Master for the first time at Breakout. It was one of the play-to-win games and one of the first games we played together at my first tabletop game convention. It plays on 1 to 4 players, being good at all player counts, with games taking about 15 minutes per player. Being from KTBG, this family-weight game is listed as for ages 8+, which sounds about right to us.
Sean from KTBG Games was awesome enough to hook us up with the deluxe Kickstarter edition of the game. And for the most part, everything we have to say here will apply to the retail version. Kickstarter exclusives include a box insert to sort all the ingredients, upgraded bowl and wasabi components, and a number of mini expansions that can be added to the base game.
So sticking with the base game for now, Maki Master is a game about making sushi by playing ingredients on a grid and then completing order cards. While your ingredients can be in any order, similar to Wreck Raiders, another game from KTBG we enjoyed and reviewed in the past, you get a bonus if you put things down in the perfect order. Once the play area is full, the player with the most points wins.
So each player starts with a hand of ingredient cards, consisting of one from the 2, 3, and 4 ingredient decks, and they place a teacup somewhere on the board. Each player's turn starts with playing a tile, so you take any ingredient tile and place it out on the board, and before placing, you can move a teacup to use its spot.
Next, players serve either sushi or prep. When you serve sushi, you show everyone an order card in your hand that matches a set of ingredients on the board that you just manipulated in some way, either through the tile you just played or by using an action card. More about those in a second. If you match the order perfectly, you get a bonus in wasabi cubes, each worth 1 point at the end. Even if not in the perfect order, you still score points on the card, which is placed face down in a scoring pile. Next, you choose a new card to replace the card you played.
Now, this part is neat because there are actually 4 different piles to choose from, ranging from 2 to 5 ingredients. And depending on what size order you take, you might gain some wasabi, and there's a good chance some will get added to this communal wasabi bowl that's kind of set in the middle of the table near the game board. Now, it always starts with 1 cube. So, for example, even if you played a 2, you could take a 3, right? So if you just complete a 2 ingredient card, you could take a 5. Or if you complete a 4, you can take a 3. You don't have to replace exactly, but you will always, at the end of your turn, have 3 order cards in your hand.
So if you can't serve sushi or choose not to, then you get to prep. So there's a few different options here. The simplest is to discard any number of cards you currently have and draw new ones. When doing this, you don't need to reference the cards you currently have, so you can Discard cards from 2s and draw 5s, as long as you draw the same number of cards.
Another option is to take all of the wasabi from the communal bowl and add it to your personal supply in your own ceramic dish, included in both the retail and deluxe editions. When you do this, you also replenish the communal bowl with 1 cube from the supply.
Now, your last option when prepping is to take an action card. And I just left this for last because it's a little bit more complicated, because there are always 3 cards face up and they're replenished once you take one. These cards give you bonus actions that can be used at any time in your turn, before or after you place a tile. They include all kinds of fun things like Spicy, which lets you spend a wasabi cube to place an extra tile. Slice, which lets you swap an ingredient in play for another of the same type. So say swap one fish for another fish. Stack, which lets you place ingredients on top of other ingredients. Or Torch, that'll give you bonus wasabi for completing orders with seafood and fish in it, and more. There's a nice big deck of these.
You also get action cards whenever you complete a 2-ingredient recipe, and you can only ever hold 2 action cards at once. So if you end up drawing more than that, you're going to have to discard one of the ones you already have.
The game continues until every space on the board is filled, and then everyone adds up their score. The points on their completed ingredients plus their wasabi total.
Now, there are ways to play Maki Master solo. You can play as a single player game, and that way is very much a puzzle experience that does have some unique rules. You set up for a 2-player game as normal, but you make your virtual opponent a stack consisting of 2 of each of the basic ingredients and 1 of each of the non-unique ingredients. You then choose a challenge card, which sets your victory conditions. This is going to consist of having to fill certain numbers of each value of order card, as well as collecting a set amount of wasabi. So you might need to complete 4 2s, 3 3s, 2 4s, and 1 5. If I remember, that's the novice level is what it requires. But then you also have to have at least 12 wasabi, and you get more points if you have 15 wasabi or 18 at the end. And that's pretty much it. You play the same. And trust me, it is not easy.
So on the opponent's turn when you're playing solo, you roll a die. This determines what role they're going to place an ingredient tile into, in which is drawn from the stack after discarding tiles equal to the roll. Then they'll either wipe the communal pile of wasabi if the die is lower than the number of cubes there, or discard an action card from the market, or place more wasabi into the communal pool, depending on the number rolled. This virtual opponent doesn't score any points or fulfill orders. They're just there to mess with you and get in your way.
That's the basic game. That's what you get in the retail version, which I've got to say is excellent on its own. It was the basic rules we played with at Breakout that made me very much want this game. Now, I do want to mention the mini expansions that come in the deluxe edition. So there's 4 of these, and each adds something new to the game. The 2 easiest to use are the ginger and soy expansions. Ginger and soy sauce expansions that add new action cards to the deck, 2 ginger and 2 soy sauce. Soy sauce has you actually place a little wooden bottle on the board, and if players complete orders that are adjacent to it, they take soy sauce tiles for each non-basic ingredient used. They're worth a point each. Ginger is similar, but you put it out on a specific tile, which is wild for your turn, so it makes completing orders very useful. But from then on, anyone who completes an order using that particular piece that has the ginger on it gets to take a piece of ginger. And that's worth a point each. But ginger also has a really cool thematic thing that I thought was a great tie-in. You can also use the ginger to cleanse your palate. Let you discard your entire hand without having to use up a prep action.
The appetizer mini expansion adds some set collection to the game where you can take the top appetizer from 1 of 2 piles if you complete an order by using a specific type of matching ingredient. So at the end of the game, everyone's going to get points based on these sets of appetizers for like having different unique appetizers, which there's 4 different types, and you get like 1 point per just appetizer on its own. Finally, the last expansion is that there is the bowl and plate mini expansion, which adds in a 5th order card type, which requires you to have specific ingredients arranged in a square on the board. And like other orders, you do get bonus wasabi if you match it perfectly. But unlike other orders, it's not specific ingredients. Instead, it's just the ingredient types and the colors, which makes it unique from all the other card types.
Now, thankfully, despite these mini expansions being Kickstarter stretch goals, everyone can get these. They are available on the KTBG website and aren't even all that expensive. The advantage backers had is that they were included in their pledge.
Now, as mentioned earlier this show, we played this game at Breakout Con. Gwen and I, 2-player, and I was instantly smitten with it. It's great looking. It's rather thematic. It really made me want to eat sushi. I was impressed by the amount of depth it had and how quickly it played. It was also really nice to set up. It is nice and quick, especially with the deluxe edition where the ingredients are already sorted into trays. But I do have to say, takedown isn't the best because you have to sort every ingredient into its proper spot. But I got to say, I would rather take extra time taking down than setting up. It's let you get the game to the playable and play almost right away.
I do think that with the deluxe version, the trays make it a lot easier because sorting the ingredients into the trays is probably way easier than the basic box, which obviously wouldn't have those nice trays to sort everything. So I feel like within the box, it would probably get scrambled between. And so all your sorting at the end wouldn't apply when you go to open up the box.
Now, just in general, I'm really impressed by KTBG, right? Kids Table Board Games is a Canadian company, and their design goal is to make kids games that hobby gamers will enjoy. And so far, the games we played have nailed it. We loved Rec Raiders. Check out our review of Rec Raiders as a kids kind of worker placement, dice placement, push your luck game, set collection, make aquariums, like a point salad. It's like my first Stefan Feld, but it's not by Stefan Feld. And I really dig Maki Master, and everyone I played this game with has loved it. And no one I played it with can really be considered a kid anymore. And I think you said something good earlier, Gwen, when you were talking about the game, that partway through you actually forgot that you were playing a kid's game.
I did. It really feels just like any other game you would have on shelf, not one that would specifically be a kid's game. I'm like, you could bring this out and I'll be 72 and you could just enjoy this game. Like, you don't have to be a kid to enjoy Maki Master. It's definitely a game for any age. It just also is easy enough that a kid could learn it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things that we've always said about KTBG games is they are family games. Now, these are family weight games. So if you're looking for a, cutthroat, heavyweight, meaty game, you're not going to find that here. This is under a two-weight game to be certain. But that just because it's that lighter game doesn't mean there isn't enough to keep you engaged, both as adult or child.
Now, the one thing I did find, and I doubt Board Game Geek can really account for this in the weight because of the way their system works, is I found that the mini expansions all added depth to the game. And the more we put in, the more hobby gamer the game felt like, right? The more adult the game felt. The appetizer plate and bowl in particular, because those really opened up your options. You no longer are trying to make straight rows and columns when you get the plates and bowls. And the appetizers give you a reason to play your tiles in a different order. And it messed with my head because I had played enough times before using that expansion that I had a habit of playing the rice as the last piece, because every sushi needs rice to start, and there's 2 different types in the game. Well, I always try to play those last so other people don't steal my rice and use it for their own. Well, once you have the appetizers out, none of the appetizers need rice. They all need special types of ingredients. They need veggies or they need fish. So I actually had to change my way of playing once we threw in that. And I got to say, like, things like set collection are just more of a gamer's term and more something to look for. I honestly think if you are buying this as a hobby gamer, playing to play it with your gamer friends, you're going to want to pick up the 4-pack of mini expansions to bring the game to me above that level.
So I do notice for some reason, because you can put weight onto expansions in Board Game Geek, but they have not added either the deluxe version or any of the expansions to the Board Game Geek page. So do take note that you won't find that information on the Board Game Geek entry right now.
Now, I think the biggest surprise for me with Maki Master was how much I actually enjoyed the solo mode. There's just something really simple and elegant about it. Some AI systems are difficult. Some Atoma in some heavier games are almost more work than they're worth. This was really simple. You played like normal. You rolled a die, you moved a target, you drew some tiles, done. And then you looked up on a chart to figure out what to do. But honestly, you end up memorizing that chart by about turn 3. It was really simple to play against, and you could play in about 15 minutes, which is always a nice bonus. This is one where you might spend more time actually cleaning up at the end, sorting all the ingredients than you did playing. And the other thing is the challenge level seemed to be up there. Like we've talked about before, you don't want solo or cooperative games to be too easy. You want them to always be close, but you want that, dang it, I almost made it, I want to play again experience. And that's actually what happened when we tried it out. Is I played and barely, I was so close to winning, but I didn't do it. And then I'm like, Gwen, you come over, you got to try this. I want to see how you do. And by the end, it took two of us trying to puzzle out the last move.
Yeah, we were sitting there and we were like, do you think if I use a switch and then I use, oh no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. We're going to have to fail this one. I guess we can play again. Then we're like, wait, but what if we did this roll first? Because we have to get 2 rolls at once. And it was just a lot of puzzling to try and figure out if we could even finish it. So it can get very thinky at those last couple turns, especially because the difficulty level is definitely up there.
And the game does provide multiple different challenge cards. So we only tried the novice or the normal, I think it was. I think it was novice.
Novice, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there are 6 different levels. Now, one is called simple, but I couldn't tell if that meant simple as in it's easier, or was just the fact you had to complete like 8 level 2 ingredient rolls. So I'm not sure which it actually was. Now, the last thing I want to call out about Maki Masters is just how awesome the iconography, theme, and artwork is here. Like, it all just makes sense. The artwork is drool worthy. Like, I really mean it. This will make you want sushi if you enjoy sushi at all. My other daughter, Eve, was like, oh, this looks so awesome. I'd never actually want to eat it, but it looks so good. And she made that comment multiple times. The ingredients are color coded by type. The information is also in text on the cards as well as on the tiles. A nice touch is the English name of every ingredient is on one side of the ingredient tile, and on the other is the Japanese, but in English, like not in Japanese characters, not in kanji, but in English. So you can actually learn something about different Japanese terms. The wasabi bowls are ceramic. It's now 2 board games I own now that came with ceramic bowls, which I thought was kind of interesting. The ingredients used and resulting rolls for the most part are actual maki and nigiri rolls until you get to the 5 ingredient ones. And at that point, I can tell they had some fun. I particularly like the Wreck Raider, obviously inspired by another game we like. And my daughter Eve was super partial to Across the Universe that has like stars on it. And every time we play with Eve, she insists we have to call out the name of everything we make. And she likes to list the specific ingredients if we'll give her the time to do so.
I will say, even with the more fantastical looking ones, they look delicious. I'm like, I would eat that. I want to eat that. I don't think it exists, but if it did, I'm eating it.
Yeah, nothing against Josh, but the art has leveled up from the original Wasabi in this game. Josh does some great work. He's done some fantastic art on multiple board games, but not for sushi's not his thing, I guess.
So yeah, overall, like and sometimes we gush a bit too much about games, but like it's deserved. Like I am super impressed with this game. I love the theme. I love how quick it is to set up. I find it easy to teach and super approachable. It's a great family game. And despite not getting to try it with kids, I think my girls would have loved this when they were much younger, especially with the sushi theme. Now, if you aren't playing with kids, I do, again, recommend pick up the mini expansions, which you can get in a bundle. But even without it, like my adult family and friends have been digging even the basic game. Now, the one thing I do want to warn you about is that this game is competitive. This is a competitive game, and competition can be fierce, and you can be nasty in this game. You can do nasty things to your opponent. This is an order fulfillment game where players can and will mess with you. You can spend 3 rounds setting up the perfect set of ingredients just to have someone place a tile in that last spot, or your carefully laid plan can be ruined by an ingredient running out. We had that happen in our last play. We're like, oh, all I have to do is play the salmon. Wait, there's no salmon? Oh my gosh, all 3 salmon's already on the board. What do I do now? And this could happen like intentionally, where players will play just to mess you up. Especially once you start getting some system mastery, you might actually recognize the roles people are going for and what they need. But it can also just happen because everyone else is trying to do their own thing and match their own order cards. Like very often you're like, oh, why'd you go there? And like, well, because I'm trying to complete my 4 that goes right there. It's nothing against you. I found this much more prominent with 4 players. With 4 players, I often had to replan my turns. Like I'd always try to be prepared on my turn and ready to do an action. With 4 players, often by the time I got to my turn, I had to rethink everything because something had messed with what I was doing.
That was normally me. I found that in our last 4-player game, I tended to somehow always have a conflict with you. You would place a piece and I would be like, that is in the exact spot that I need to place something, and I would remove it. And you'd be like, no, but I just put that there. And I'm like, well, why did you go where I need to go?
Yes. We had a lot of conflict in the last game. Now what's nice is the action cards do exist to help mitigate this. But just the action cards can be used to rearrange things purposely for you. But you know what? Some players can also use them vindictively. Removing a unique ingredient. Every 5-star recipe requires one of the unique ingredients, and there's only one of each of those in the game. So moving one of those or or chopping one from the board can be particularly nasty. And the reason I bring this up is this could be a turnoff to some players. Honestly, this is the only thing I can think of that would turn off players from Maki Master. There is some negative player interactions. If you don't like having your plans messed with possibly often, you may not enjoy this. And honestly, I was thinking about it while I was actually writing this review, and I'm like, no, what I would like to see, though, is a cooperative mode where everyone's working together to score the most points and complete the most orders. Like, I think that would just work with this game almost as it stands. Like, we're just going to see how much points we can score together and play with open hands and try to come up with the best combos. And I'm kind of surprised you didn't see that in the game box. Like, Sean, if you're listening, I think your game could reach another audience if you did throw that in.
I do feel like we don't have enough cooperative games to bring out to like our gaming events and stuff. And with this one being as simple as it is, I think this would be a great addition for like the Walkerville events to finally have another good cooperative game if it did play co-op.
So what do you think of it for our Walkerville game nights the way it stands?
I still think it would be really good. I feel like it's going to be simple enough to teach even for people who are newer to gaming and just came out to see what it was, as well as for gamers who are there frequently and do play like harder, more complicated games. Yeah.
The Maki Master is really solid. We really enjoy it. Unless you absolutely don't like games where your plans can be ruined or where you can get messed with, pick this up. Like check it out. Just again, this is not it's designed with kids and family in mind, but that does not mean this is a kid's game. Trust me, your regular game group is going to dig this.
Now, I really want sushi. I bet you do too. Maybe instead of sushi, you can pick up some swag. We've reduced the price on all of our official Tabletop Bellhop merch, which you can find at tabletopbellhop.com/merch.
There you'll find mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, and more. Some of which feature board game inspired artwork drawn right here by Gwen, who joined us live for this special episode. So thanks again for your artwork. And if you want to see some of Gwen's work, go check out our merch store.
Well, that was the double bell.
That means our shift's coming to an end, and we're going to have to lock those lobby doors, or since Red Meeple Ryan's here, we'll say drop that portcullis.
Before we start locking things down, let's take a moment to thank a selection of our Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patrons. Derek Hassan, thanks, Derek.
Thanks, Misdirected Mark family. I would have loved to have seen some of you at Breakout, though I understand it's not quite as easy to get to as it used to be.
Donna, you were here earlier but had to take off. Thank you for all your enjoyment of our show.
Evil
that
John.
Wasn't awkward at all.
Evil John, thank you, John.
Brian Kurtz, thank you, Brian.
Chris Leary, thank you. Well, your first stop to finding us should be at tabletopbellhop.com, but you can find us all over the web as Tabletop Bellhop, one word, and on your podcatcher of choice as the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast.
Now, we are the Dear Abby for gamers. If you've got a game or game night question for us, email questions at tabletopbellhop.com or head to the webpage and click on Ask the Bellhop. Now, before we do sign off, I do want to thank Gwendolen for joining us tonight. I think you did an awesome job. One little fumble, we had to go back. I think you did better than your mom usually does. And we would love to have you back sometime soon. What say you, Lobby? Did she nail it? Do we want Gwen back sometime?
Well, we've already got some great appreciation coming out from the lobby for her.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I loved going to Breakout Con, and I enjoyed being on the podcast tonight. I was a little nervous to start recording, but I think I sort of got used to it once we got more into it, and I hope that I've been good on the podcast.
Awesome. Well, that's all for us tonight.
For the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, I'm Sean.
I'm Gwen.
And I'm Moe.
Thank you.
And game on.
Game on.
Game on.